Chapter 2147. The Sacred Lord didn't know Yi Qinghan's background and didn't dare to act recklessly. The Saint Destroyer finger was a huge blow to him, so he restrained the 9 lords from interfering with the existence behind Yi Qinghan. No one knew that Yi Qinghan was faking the will of the heavens. The one who gave him the Saint Destroyer finger wasn't an immortal or a great sage, but the heavens. He only managed to scare the Sacred Lord and the Spectre Patriarch. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was dumbfounded, and Fan Yin didn't know if it was real or fake. Those who thought they knew Yi Qinghan were confused. Even the Chess Saint couldn't tell if the person behind Yi Qinghan was the Green Lotus Sword Immortal. The great world quieted down. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage returned to the Heavenly Reaching School, but he didn't go to Crazed Manor. To express his gratitude, the Emperor Sage brought the 3 sages to Crazed Manor. However, it wasn't Yi Qinghan who welcomed them, but Lin Wuxian and the Yar Saint. Greetings, Emperor Sage. Lin Wuxian was married to the Yar Saint, so his seniority was much lower. He bowed respectfully. The Yar Saint also knelt outside the door. However, the Emperor Sage didn't dare to show his status. Who knew if there was an immortal hiding in Crazed Manor? He helped the 2 up and asked, "Where's sect leader Yi? Didn't Universal Love bring him back?" Lin Wuxian was stunned and quickly said, "Didn't Universal Love go to the Spectre clan with Master?" The Emperor Sage frowned and thought, did Universal Love bring him back to the Oshi sacred ground? That's impossible. Yi Qinghan can't go back to the Oshi sacred ground. Whoosh, the Emperor Sage's figure flashed. Half a day later, he arrived at the Sword Dao Eternal Sacred Ground. The Sword Dao Eternal Saint and the Chess Saint were shocked and quickly came out to greet him. "Greetings, Emperor Sage. I didn't know you were coming. Sorry for not coming out to meet you." The Sword Dao Eternal Saint bowed. The Emperor Sage stared at the Chess Saint and said in a low voice, "I know you have a good relationship with Yi Qinghan. Can I trust you?" The Chess Saint didn't know what the Emperor Sage wanted and quickly replied. He bowed and replied, "Great Sage, if you have any orders." Whoosh! Emperor Sage waved his hand to block off the void and said to the 2, "Help me investigate the location of Yi Qinghan and Charity Saint. They are missing." What? The 2 saints were shocked. The Saint of Universal Love's strength was second only to the Great Saint, especially the Eye of Destruction. Everyone knew that it could make a saint self-destruct. How could it disappear without a trace? Absolute Saint was also very worried. Both Yi Qinghan and Universal Love Saint were important to him. He didn't want anything to happen to either of them, especially when they were together. This old man's spies are all in the holy land of Oshi. Transferring them here to investigate is too high profile. It's easy for others to know that the 2 of them are missing. I wonder if the 2 of you can help me investigate? Holy Emperor asked in a deep voice. Chess Supreme Saint did not hesitate. The Eternal Sage of the Way of the Sword also wanted to use Yi Qinghan to get in touch with the so-called immortals. They were all willing to help the Absolute Saint find Yi Qinghan, so they quickly agreed. Holy Emperor said indifferently, "I'll wait for your news in the Kuang Mansion. Once you find out, report to me immediately. This old man will repay you." After that, Holy Emperor quickly returned to the Kuang Mansion. At this time, the Saint of Light described the scene of Yi Qinghan's great power in the territory of the Guotian clan. Lin Wuxian heard it and trembled with fear. Something happened to Master. Lin Wuxian was almost certain. He had followed Yi Qinghan since he was young. Naturally, he knew Yi Qinghan's temper. If nothing happened, he would definitely come back to organize the Kuang sect to occupy the Shrouding Heaven secret realm. However, he did not say it out loud. Instead, he took out the divine sword and held it in his hand. His eyes shone brightly. He walked out of the hall and went to the forbidden area in the back of the mountain. The masters of the Kuang sect were all there. Medusa, Gu Qingyu, and the others were all cultivating and comprehending the saint's scripture. The ninth empty palace had been opened for many years. Just the Holy Spirit stones alone had consumed nearly 100,000 pieces. Everyone was comprehending the saint's scripture. Although they were not as fast as Lin Wuqian, they were far faster than the heroes in the world. At this time, all of them had reached the upper level. Moreover, 13 of them had entered the state of half-saint. They were all at the same level. What they lacked now was immortal elixirs. However, Green Lotus Sword Fairy had already condensed 9 of them. Lin Wuqian did not hesitate and distributed the 9 immortal elixirs. Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, Di Longtian, Li Feng, Jian Qinxue, Yan Ao, Stan Wuxia, Huang Peng, Zhong Yuesi, Tong Tong Tong, Lin Shukong, the son of Lin Wuqian, had now surpassed them and become half-saints. There were also Xia Ziluo and Mu Zhuang. A total of 13 people had entered the state of half-saint. However, there were only 9 immortal elixirs. Gu Qingyu already had 1, so there were still 3 people who could not get immortal elixirs. The 3 juniors don't want the immortal elixirs for now. The other 9 martial uncles should get the immortal elixirs first and become saints as soon as possible. Then, according to the young master's idea, we should occupy the shrouding secret realm first. Lin Wuqian said in a low voice. Tan Wuxia, Tong Tong, and Lin Shukong did not get the immortal elixirs, but they had nothing to say. The other 10 were the older generation, so they did not want to compete. They knew that there were still 2 immortal peaches to condense 18 immortal elixirs, which was enough for the Kuang sect. Lin Wuqian looked at the high fighting spirit of the Kuang sect. He did not dare to tell the others about his guess. He could only bury it in his heart and slowly investigate Yi Qinghan's whereabouts. A few months later, the 9th Void Palace was filled with the aura of a saint. Lin Wuqian was afraid that it would disturb the others, so he separated the 10 experts and let them advance on their own. A year later, the sky above the Kuang sect was shrouded in multicolored light, covering the mountains and rivers. The 2 saints from the eternal sacred land of Sword Dao were the closest to the sect. They were dumbfounded. How many saints had advanced to the next realm? Whoosh! The first to rush out of Void Palace number 9 was Jiang Jingtian, and the second was Gu Qingyu. These 2 heroes, one holding a long spear, the other holding a divine sword, turned into heavenly war gods, overlooking all living things, shocking all directions. Then, Xia Ziluo and Mu Zhuang also rushed out, followed by Di Longtian and Jian Qinxue. There were 10 saints in total. Including Lin Wuqian, the Kuang sect had more than 11 saints. That was 2 more than the Holy Nation. Even Holy Emperor's expression changed. He had no doubt that the immortal was behind the Kuang sect. He wanted to meet the immortal several times, but he was rejected. He did not dare to act rashly, so he could only wait silently. Everyone, put on a cloak and go to the door of Master's courtyard. Then, go to the sky-shrouding secret realm. Lin Wuqian said in a low voice. Gu Qingyu frowned and asked, "Where is your young master?" Lin Wuqian's expression changed slightly, but he did not hide it from Gu Qingyu. After all, the relationship between Gu Qingyu and Yi Qinghan was too unusual. He transmitted his guess to Gu Qingyu. Gu Qingyu was silent for a moment and nodded, approving Lin Wuqian's action. Whoosh! More than 30 experts at the peak of the upper realm, 3 half-saints, and 11 saints were all wearing black cloaks made of special materials that could block the divine sense of the saints. No one could see their true faces. They were uniformly equipped and surrounded the door of the courtyard. At this time, Green Lotus Sword Deity, who was wearing a black cloak, disappeared into the crowd like the rest of the Kuang sect. No one asked who this extra person was. There was no need to ask, because everyone knew that some things were better left unknown. Go to the sky-shrouding secret realm. Kill anyone who stands in our way. Gu Qingyu pulled out his sword and stepped out of the Kuang sect. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Although there were few people in the Kuang sect, their momentum made the Light Saint and other veteran saints change their expressions. Holy Emperor looked at this group of people who were like a pack of wolves, unstoppable once they set their goal. He was shocked. Chapter 2148. The appearance of Kuang Zong shocked the world. 11 eternal saints had appeared at once. The sacred leader quickly received the news. His face turned purple and he clenched his fists. Now, he didn't even have the strength to test the strength of the immortal behind Yi Qinghan. Unless he took action personally, he could directly suppress the 11 eternal saints. Because of Yi Qinghan's words, all the sacred lands in the world didn't dare to make a sound. They allowed Gu Qingyu and the others to rush to the Shrouding Sky secret realm. The Battle Ancestor's expression changed when he saw the Battle Clan's experts rushing to the Battle Clan's territory. He quickly came out to greet them and even brought the Son of Battle. Yi Qinghan had a good relationship with the Son of Battle. He hoped that Yi Qinghan would not attack the Battle Clan for the sake of the Son of Battle. The Battle Clan's territory didn't interest the Battle Clan's people. They cupped their fists as a greeting and continued to rush forward with the upper-level cultivators. Half a year later, the Battle Clan saints arrived at the Shrouding Sky secret realm. Although there were only a few of them, no one dared to respond. 11 saints, 3 half-saints, and 2 freaks, Yan Yunbei and Zhou Shuguang, had the same goal as Yi Qinghan. They wanted to be the same level as the Supreme, but they still didn't want to become a saint. Once they became a saint, their strength wouldn't be inferior to Xiaohouhe. They might even surpass him. Break the seal. From now on, the Shrouding Sky secret realm will become the 9 states' crazy mansion. Tell the world that whoever dares to resist can come and fight. Gu Qingyu stood high and looked at the Battle Clan elder, the Battle Ancestor. At this moment, Yan Ao stepped forward and cupped his fists. Also, I would like to ask the Battle Ancestor to pass a message on behalf of the Battle Clan. The Battle Clan was founded to recruit talents from all over the world. Anyone who passes the assessment will be treated equally and absolutely well. Talent, willpower, and temperament are the key points of the assessment, regardless of background. Although the Battle Ancestor was a saint and famous for his battles and was one of the more powerful sacred lands, he didn't know what to say in the face of the Battle Clan's geniuses. The Battle Clan wanted to conquer the Battle Clan. I'm willing to do it. The Battle Ancestor replied. Thank you. Yan Ao's eyes flashed. The War Ancestor couldn't bring himself to say, "You're welcome." He could only smile bitterly. Yan Ao waved his hand and mobilized the saints to shatter the enchantment of the Shrouding Heaven's secret realm. From then on, the enchantment no longer existed and was connected to the great world. However, the entrance was guarded by saints. Unless a great saint personally came, no one could invade the Shrouding Heaven's secret realm. After entering the Shrouding Sky secret realm, it had been renamed the 9 States Wild Manor. Lin Wutian should have been happy, but now he looked worried. He gathered all the elders of the Wild sect and told them everything. Martial uncles and martial uncles, this disciple will explain the current situation to you. I hope that everyone can think of a solution together. Opening the 9th Void Palace requires a large number of Heavenly Spirit holy stones. It's only been a few decades, and I have less than 100,000 Heavenly Spirit holy stones left. It's almost unrealistic to want to mass-produce saints in the future. We've reached a bottleneck, and now the Sacred Lord has been intimidated by Little Master. Sooner or later, the fact that we don't have an immortal to protect us will be exposed. Once it's exposed, the Sacred Lord will be furious, and we saints won't have the power to turn the situation around. A true saint, is a true saint. With a lack of resources and immortal pills, the Wild sect was weak. The 9th Void Palace was indeed the most useless weapon in the legends. It was powerful, but no one could afford to use it. Yan Ao, Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and even the Wild sect's master had a heavy expression. The great saint realm was something they could only hope for. Without millions of years of accumulation, no one could enter that realm. After millions of years, the wild sect's foundation had already been exposed. Would the sacred Lord allow the wild sect to continue for millions of years? Green Lotus Sword Immortal stood in the distance, feeling helpless. Her influence was definitely stronger than the sacred lord's, but now that she was missing half of the source, she couldn't even defeat the weakest ghost god old ancestor. Once the great saint war started, she could only run away. Yi Qinghan hasn't returned. His life flute has sent a message. His life force has dropped to the lowest point, which means he's about to die. Green Lotus Sword Immortal's expression was normal. She didn't look sad at all. Instead, she slowly sat on a rock and looked at the world, the great Shang world. Her eyes were filled with unwillingness and anger. In the eternal world, all the forces were looking at the Holy Empire. Just like that, the wild sect occupied the shrouding heaven's secret realm that belonged to all the forces in the eternal world. But other than the four major forces with great saints, who would dare to oppose? Of the four major forces with great saints, Sky-Piercing Cult and Oshi Sacred Ground obviously wouldn't oppose. Only the Holy Empire and Ghost God race were left. The Ghost God race followed the Holy Empire's lead. If the Holy Empire didn't say anything, they could only remain silent. The Holy Empire was quiet as if nothing had happened. The 9 Mansion Masters didn't come out, the Sacred Lord didn't say anything, allowing the wild sect to occupy the shrouding heaven's secret realm. Why did they suddenly have so many sages? Even if they were talented, they might not be able to break through at the same time. The Sacred Lord frowned and pondered. He increasingly felt that there was a legendary immortal behind the wild sect who was experimenting on the wild sect. The Sacred Lord couldn't make up his mind. After the wild sect occupied the shrouding heaven's secret realm, he could only turn a blind eye. Although I've only seen it once, with my talent, I can definitely evolve it. The Sacred Lord clenched his fist. In his sea of consciousness, he evolved all the trajectories of Yi Qinghan's Sacred Lord's finger, looking for a breakthrough to understand the Sacred Lord's finger. At this moment, the Saint of Universal Love, also known as the Goddess of Love, fled with Yi Qinghan. She actually managed to find a sizable island in the endless depths of the sea. It was like a small continent with a radius of several million miles. Although it was as small as the tip of a needle compared to the continents of the greater world, it was the best place to live. Mountains rose and fell, forests covered the sky. The spiritual energy was rich, and the water element was abnormally strong. Yi Qinghan was wrapped in holy light at this time. He had not yet recovered, but the condition of his body had changed slightly. It was much better than before, and the death aura was much less. In the end, not only did his soul not collapse, but it was also stronger. The Goddess of Love's eyes were full of expectation. Carrying Yi Qinghan on her back, she walked on foot and found the most suitable place for survival. She built a courtyard house with her own hands. This kind of handicraft was too easy for a sage. It was quiet and peaceful here. The mountains and rivers were the same color, and the elements and spiritual energy were extremely calm. Yi Qinghan lay on the flowers, filled with holy light. Especially his head, it was bathed in holy light. The prison heaven Tao scripture in his sea of consciousness protected his last bit of vitality and soul, but he could not recover. Even if he was alive, he would be in a vegetative state. The Goddess of Love was busy making Yi Qinghan a wheelchair. Every day, she pushed him under the sun to transfer his life force, hoping that he would wake up. Time flew by. 10 years felt like a day. The Goddess of Love did the same thing every day, but Yi Qinghan did not improve at all. However, at this time, Yi Qinghan's soul finally regained consciousness. It was just that he could not control his physical body. He could only use his consciousness to see the second page of the prison heaven Tao scripture in his sea of consciousness. Chapter 2149. In the depths of the endless sea, this huge island couldn't be compared to the coiling Dragon Island, but it wasn't small either. There were seabirds and sea beasts living here, but there were no humans. There were only 2 people living on this huge island. Yi Qinghan hadn't woken up for 10 years, but the goddess of love didn't feel lonely. She looked at Yi Qinghan every day and felt inexplicably happy sometimes. "You're such a treacherous person. Do you regret losing so badly this time?" The goddess of love touched Yi Qinghan's forehead and asked with a smile. Yi Qinghan couldn't hear anything from the outside world, nor could he feel the goddess of love. It was as if he was in chaos and had returned to nothingness. The entire world was the imprisoning Heaven Tao scripture. He couldn't see or hear anything else. The goddess of love muttered to herself. Even if Yi Qinghan didn't respond, she still wanted to speak and wake Yi Qinghan up. It said that good people don't live long, but bad people live for 1,000 years. A selfish person like you is definitely not a good person. You must be unwilling to die like this. Hurry up and wake up. I'm also very bored. The goddess of love lay beside the wheelchair and said softly, "I also want to see if there really are immortals in this world. I want to see if you're the first to become an immortal." Boom boom boom, whoosh whoosh whoosh, the waves crashed into the sky. The island was located in the center of the great world. It was like spring all year round, and the beautiful environment made people forget to leave. The goddess of love pushed Yi Qinghan on the beach. The sea breeze blew her hair and blended with the world. The unconscious Yi Qinghan could only comprehend the second page of the imprisoning Heaven Tao scripture. The holy light dissipated, and a line of small words appeared. Heaven-breaking star-plucking hand. The heaven-breaking star-plucking hand was an immortal-level technique. With a wave of the hand, one could pluck the sun, moon, and stars and crush saints. When cultivated to the peak, the great perfection realm, one could surpass the great sage realm and break through this layer of imprisonment to become an immortal. The mysteries of the star-picking hand were still hard to understand, even harder to comprehend than the sacred finger of annihilation. However, it was still impossible to determine which celestial method was more powerful. However, since it was engraved in the heaven-imprisoning Taoist scripture, it was definitely not bad. Yi Qinghan used his consciousness to comprehend the immortal technique. The abstruse runes made it impossible for him to shift his consciousness away. He felt his eyes sting, and tears fell from the corners of his eyes. The goddess of love noticed a teardrop at the corner of Yi Qinghan's eye. She thought that he had recalled something sad. She rubbed the corner of his eye and comforted him. "It's all right now. Everything has returned to normal. Wake up quickly. The Holy Lord won't be able to find this place." Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched. He could hear the voice of the goddess of love, but he could not wake her up. "Damn it, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life?" Yi Qinghan wanted to clench his fists, but he couldn't even make such a simple request, let alone have any other reaction. After a long time, Yi Qinghan withdrew his consciousness. He didn't want to continue comprehending the heaven-crushing star-plucking hand. His exhausted soul quickly fell asleep again. This continued for more than 20 years. Yi Qinghan still couldn't wake up. Day after day, the goddess of love helped Yi Qinghan loosen his muscles and bones, promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis. She hoped that he would wake up soon. Yi Qinghan didn't know when he would wake up. Like the goddess of love, she didn't even know if he could wake up. But she didn't give up. In the eternal world, the Holy Emperor couldn't wait any longer. Yi Qinghan and the goddess of love had been missing for almost 40 years. There was no news of them at all. The Holy Emperor had urged the Chess Sovereign and the Eternal Saint of the Sword Tao several times. However, the 2 saints had mobilized all the elites of the eternal sacred land of the Sword Tao, but they still couldn't find any information about the 2. All information was cut off after the Spectre Patriarch ceremony. No one could find Yi Qinghan and the goddess of love. Even the people of the Holy Nation and the Spectre clan were looking for Yi Qinghan. Since they couldn't find Yi Qinghan, no one dared to act rashly. At this time, the Kuang sect had already gained a firm foothold in the Shrouding Sky secret realm. Since the Kuang sect occupied the Shrouding Sky secret realm, there were 7 more eternal sovereigns. Yan Yunbei, Heaven's equal Monkey King, Sui Shuguang, Tong Tong, and the Little Divine Bird. Because Sui Shuguang had his own immortal pills, he only used 6 of the 9 immortal pills this time. There were still 3 left. The 9th Void Palace was closed because the heavenly sacred stones had been used up. The wholesale business of the saints had been cut off. Moreover, the Kuang sect's resources had been exhausted. There were only 30% of the immortal peaches and high-grade sacred herbs left. At this time, after the news of the insane school's expansion spread out, countless young talents wanted to join the insane school. There were many experts from the Oshi Holy Ground and the Holy Empire. They were all talented, but they had no background and were not given the opportunity to do so. There were also secret agents among the candidates. They were very secretive. It was impossible to find them with ordinary methods. For safety reasons, Lin Wuqian took Tan Wuxia and Tong Tong to the Holy Land of the Martial Tao Supremes. Wu Zhenjuan looked at the 3 young eternal saints. The corner of his mouth twitched. He wanted to refuse Lin Wuqian's request, but the 3 teenagers were not to be trifled with. I want to take Lil Miss back. If the Supremes and Saints agree, the Kuang sect will treat them well. If not, don't blame me for being impolite. Lin Wuqian said in a deep voice. Boom! Tong Tong and Tan Wuxia's aura exploded. Although they were of the younger generation, their strength was very abnormal. Especially Tong Tong, who had an immortal body. The resentment on his body was very strong, which made people very uncomfortable. Especially since he was a saint and had the bones of a supreme being. His battle strength was definitely not inferior to Gu Qingyu. Wu Zhenjuan clenched his fists. As the saying goes, people under the eaves have to bow their heads. He had to hand over Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing. Emperor Yi also wanted to return to the Kuang sect, but he had been suppressed in the Holy Land by Wu Zhenjuan recently. At this time, he bowed to Wu Zhenjuan and said in a deep voice, Father, forgive me for not being able to accompany you. Don't worry. As long as I'm alive, whoever dares to offend the Holy Land of the Martial Tao Supremes is the same as offending the Kuang sect. The Kuang sect will send troops to protect you. Wu Zhenjuan smiled bitterly and looked dotingly at Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing. He reminded them in a deep voice, since you were born, I have been watching your fate wheel. Your calamity is getting closer and closer. You must be careful. Emperor Yi smiled. He naturally knew that Wu Zhenjuan sincerely wanted them to be well. He bowed and said, Father, the Kuang sect is not what it used to be. If the Kuang sect can't protect us, we will be a burden to you. I will take my leave now. When the outside world is completely peaceful, I will come back with my sister to see you. Wu Zhenjuan wanted to ask him to stay, but he didn't have the strength to do so. He could only watch as Lin Wuqian took Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing away. The 3 saints condensed the void and took Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing into the sky and left. A few years later, the 5 of them returned to the current 9 states wild manor. At this time, a large number of experts had gathered and were waiting for the test. Tens of thousands of people had passed all the tests, but they still couldn't enter the 9 states wild manor. They were waiting for Emperor Yi to come and take the last test, temperament. If one wanted to stay in the 9 states wild manor and become a member of the Kuang sect, they had to pass the test to be recognized. Once recognized, they would receive endless resources. It was not impossible to become a saint. Chapter 2150. The Kuang Manor was developing like a raging fire. Those who came for the assessment were all confident in themselves. There were many geniuses, and there was no lack of spies from various holy lands. However, they couldn't withstand Renhuang Ye's illusion and were all eliminated. The holy empires and other major forces could only watch enviously as the crazy sect developed. They did not dare to do anything openly and could only plot against them secretly. However, they could not stop the world's development. The crazy sect's starting point was too high. With so many saints protecting it, who would not want to enjoy the shade under the big tree? Moreover, the number of people was too small at the beginning. In a few decades, the number had increased to more than 800,000. Other than a few with special talents who were accepted into the crazy sect, the rest were brought to the depths of the 9 states crazy sect for training by Yan Ao. Yi Qinghan, who was far away in the depths of the sea, was still unconscious. However, his soul was becoming more and more awake. His divine sense had been staring at the second page for many years. He could not shift his gaze away from the difficult runes. Occasionally, the runes would evolve into supernatural powers. He could reach out and crush the sky. His momentum was unstoppable. Even a saint could not resist the power of his will. After so many years, Yi Qinghan could not use his saint power. He could only use his will to cultivate, causing his will to become abnormally strong. 100 years later, Yi Qinghan had been in a deep sleep for 100 years. His will had surpassed the upper planes full circle and entered the half-saint realm. His physical body was almost decaying. Although his blood could still circulate, his saint power could not reach the saint golden body. Cultivation was like sailing against the current. His will had become abnormally strong, but his physical cultivation could not keep up. It was as if it had regressed. The stronger his will, the faster he could comprehend the heaven-piercing star-plucking hand. The runes became clearer and clearer. The little person on the second page was vivid. His movements were clear and his power was getting stronger. He could break the void and kill a saint with a wave of his hand. Yi Qinghan's divine sense stared at the second page. He wanted to move his body to perform the heaven-piercing star-plucking hand. However, his hands were as heavy as stars. His veins were bulging. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan tried to control the sea with his mind. The originally calm sea suddenly exploded, and a curtain of water shot up into the sky, forming a water dragon that went against the heavens. Then, it turned into a giant hand in the air that could crush the sky. It went straight into the depths of the clouds, wanting to pluck the stars from the top of the dome of heaven. Crack, crack, crack. The void continued to shatter, unable to block the momentum of this move at all. The goddess of love, who was resting on Yi Qinghan's arm, was suddenly awakened by the aura that filled the world. Looking at the huge hand in the sky, she was shocked speechless. Yi Qinghan's mind was shaken. Although he couldn't move, he could actually use his will to manifest a human form to practice the heaven-breaching star-plucking hand. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan used his mind to control the seawater and formed a waterman. He was about 2 meters tall and his immortal robe sparkled like a real immortal robe. Under the sunlight, it reflected the colorful holy robe. His face was vivid and lifelike, as if he was a second Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan, who was formed from seawater, actually smiled when facing the goddess of love. It was evident how perverse Yi Qinghan's will was at this moment. Even his control of seawater was so fine that it was like a saint's. The goddess of love was so emotional that tears kept falling. She then lowered her head to look at Yi Qinghan, who did not seem to show any signs of waking up. "Can you wake up now?" the goddess of love asked anxiously. The man formed from seawater could not speak. Then, he waved his hand and moved the seawater to draw some words in the air. The words were filled with immortal power and were vast and mighty. "I can't control my physical body. My soul has been controlled to death. I wonder if my soul can break through when it becomes a saint." The goddess of love wiped her tears. When she learned that Yi Qinghan would not die, she was so emotional that she could not speak. It's good that you're alive. It's good that you're alive. The goddess of love said as she wiped her tears. The powerful goddess of love had never shed a tear in her life. Today, she shed tears. Then, she smiled through her tears and said, "You bastard, you actually let me know that I can cry." The waterman smiled. It was filled with charm and made the sky rumble. The seawater surged as if it was cheering for Yi Qinghan and the goddess of love. I want to cultivate the space-piercing star-plucking hand. You can learn it. How much you can learn will depend on your comprehension and fate. Yi Qinghan controlled the waterman with his thoughts and formed the words that could intimidate the 9 heavens. Then, the waterman was like an immortal. Its aura changed and even the goddess of love was stunned. Whoosh! The waterman moved. Its hands formed seals very slowly. It was cultivating and teaching the goddess of love at the same time. Yi Qinghan also hoped to nurture the goddess of love into a great saint. Whoosh! Boom! The space-piercing star-plucking hand only had 6 moves. Once the 6 moves were completed, a great saint could be eliminated. When the 6 moves were combined into one, it surpassed the great perfection. Yi Qinghan had comprehended 5 moves in 100 years. It was a pity that the power of his thoughts was still too weak. If he used all his strength, 2 moves would exhaust his thoughts and cause him to faint completely. The waterman danced in the sky and mobilized the power of the sea. It formed seals with one hand and broke through time and space. The next moment, it appeared 100 miles away from the sea and stood on top of the clouds. It stretched out its hand and cut open the sky. The great Tao sank and the sea sank. The momentum made the saints not dare to raise their heads. The first move. Shatter the void. Whoosh! 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 The second move. Plucking the stars. The waterman's aura became stronger and stronger. Its speed became faster and faster, and its power became stronger and stronger. The third move, overturn the heavens and destroy the half-saint. It shattered the sky with one hand. It was as if the sky had been overturned. A wave of the hand could kill a half-saint. The goddess of love cultivated with Yi Qinghan, but she could not learn the complicated seals. Even if she forced herself to form seals, the power in her body was like a knife cutting open her flesh. She was in so much pain that she fell from the sky, unable to control her body. Yi Qinghan had already cultivated the waterman to the 4th move. The 4th move, condensing qi into a saint seal. It emitted a holy light as the saint seal descended from the sky, sinking the sea thousands of miles. The waves were millions of feet high. The qi rushed to the Milky Way and shattered the void. Each move was stronger than the last. The 4th move, kill the saint. The 5th move, controlling qi as a sword, seizing the saint's soul from 10,000 miles. The waterman formed seals with both hands, condensing qi into a sword. However, the immortal sword dissipated just as it was condensed. The waterman dissipated. Even if it was a simple cultivation, Yi Qinghan's willpower was not enough. The goddess of love was dumbfounded. Every move of this kind of cultivation would at most consume 30% of Yi Qinghan's strength. However, its power was already so great. If he cultivated to become a saint, which saint could resist him? Yi Qinghan returned to calmness. It was not until a month later when the goddess of love pushed him to the seaside that he woke up again. He condensed the waterman again and cultivated again. This time, he finally completed the 5th move. The power was stronger than before, and he was more proficient. His willpower was strengthened again and again. This time, he only took 28 days to wake up. The 3rd time he cultivated, he improved significantly again. The time he took to wake up increased to 20 days. Every time, Yi Qinghan only had a short communication with the goddess of love. However, the goddess of love was intoxicated in this environment. She watched Yi Qinghan's willpower grow stronger and she enjoyed it. Yi Qinghan felt that his willpower and soul were already on the verge of entering the eternal saint realm. He only lacked an immortal elixir. However, it would be a waste to consume it now. This was because his physical body still needed an immortal elixir, or even more, to become a saint. Chapter 2151. Day after day, year after year, Yi Qinghan's soul and will became stronger and stronger. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. Yi Qinghan mobilized the water man to form a few words again. How many years have I been unconscious? The goddess of love was overjoyed and quickly replied, 133 years on the island. Adding the time we spent on the journey, about 150 years have passed. Whoosh! The words appeared in the air again. Give me the elixir. I want to see if I can break the imprisonment of the heavenly prison Tao scripture. The goddess of love didn't hesitate and quickly fed him the elixir. The elixir melted as soon as it entered his mouth. A wave of holy power surged through his body, and his black hair danced wildly. Yi Qinghan's body was filled with divine light, and his blood was boiling. The little divine dragon and divine bird in his bloodline benefited. Although they couldn't rush out of his body, their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. The little divine dragon, especially, appeared on his forehead. It was so lifelike that it looked like it was about to break free of its imprisonment and rush out of his body. Roar! A dragon's roar came from Yi Qinghan's body, and it caused the sea to churn. A divine dragon appeared in the sky, and light covered the sky. Just as Yi Qinghan was about to become a saint, Xia Jiulong's hands reached into the head of the person standing on the planet in the holy nation's heaven-sealing prison. The immortal sealing imprint appeared on his forehead, and he forcefully stole the origin energy of the person standing on the planet. Ah! The person standing on the planet roared, and his body became restless. The runes on the sacred sealing chain exploded, trapping him in place. He. Ha 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 ha. So what if your origin is powerful? You're just making a wedding dress for me. I have the immortal sealing imprint, so the title of the strongest immortal in the world will definitely be mine. Xia Jiulong was like a mad demon, and his aura surged. The divine dragon robe's aura exploded, and the divine dragon swam. The aura of the entire sealing heaven's prison was in chaos. Strong winds blew, and the energy shattered rocks and pierced through mountains and rivers. Even the upper-level mystic cultivators standing far away were injured. Boom! Xia Jiulong's celestial sealing imprint was forcefully seizing the innate talent and origin of the person stepping on the star. His saintly aura was condensing in his body. Without relying on immortal pills, he actually wanted to break through the shackles and become a saint. The veins on the person with the star under his feet bulged. His expression was sinister, and blood flowed from his 7 apertures. His entire body was distorted, and his luster was growing dimmer and dimmer. Half a day later, that expert's soul was devoured, and all of his memories were plundered by Xia Jiulong. Whoosh! Xia Jiulong's figure flashed as he rushed out of the heaven-sealing prison. He reached out with both hands, and the spiritual energy in the sky surged, forming a terrifying vortex. The saint dragon swam around his golden body, and his dragon robe fluttered in the wind. His momentum was like a rainbow. Billions of stars flashed, and the power of the stars enveloped Xia Jiulong, filling him to the brim in an instant. His cultivation level continued to climb, as if the power of the entire world was under his control. He mastered the 34 forms of the astral arts in an instant, and the 9 transformations of the astral arts reached the pinnacle. His figure flashed, leaving afterimages everywhere. Holy Nation's 10th saint appeared. His appearance shook the heavens and earth, causing the heavens to become restless. His immortal sealing imprint stirred up the heavens, giving him the blessings of 10,000 laws. I want to become an immortal. Xia Jiulong roared into the sky, and the airwaves spread for millions of miles. His murderous aura shattered the stars, and he waved his hand, shattering a star in the sky. The sacred leader stood on the sacred leader mountain in the sacred city, looking at Xia Jiulong's arrogant aura. He smiled and nodded continuously. The holy nation quickly started the heaven worship ceremony, and the sacred leader summoned all the saints in the world to have an audience with him. The sacred leader's aura was mighty, and it was even more shocking than the specter patriarch's audience with the great saint. No one from the Oshi sacred ground came to give their blessings, nor did anyone from the insane sect. All the other saints came, and they did not dare to disrespect the sacred leader. The enmity between the holy nation and the insane sect was getting stronger and more obvious. After the heaven worship ceremony ended, the sacred leader summoned Xia Jiulong. "Go, drag Yi Qinghan out and beat him up again. Don't kill him, I want to comprehend the saint-killing finger," the sacred leader said in a deep voice. At the mention of Yi Qinghan, Xia Jiulong's lips curled up. His eyes were full of disdain and murderous intent, and he clenched his fists tightly. "Patriarch, don't worry. Today, I will help you defeat the saints of the insane sect and help you comprehend the saint-killing finger. Once you comprehend it, you will become an immortal." Xia Jiulong knelt on one knee, and his eyes were full of arrogance. One day, he would crush thousands of enemies, and no one would be able to surpass him, including the patriarch, the sacred leader. The sacred leader could see that Xia Jiulong was ambitious, but he did not say anything. He only nodded, indicating that he should go to the 9 states insane sect with the 9 lords. The sacred leader hid in the void far away, and even Xia Jiulong did not know about it. Xia Jiulong led the 9 lords to the 9 states insane sect on the dragon boat, breaking through the void. The world was restless, and they knew that the holy nation was beginning to test the insane sect. One was like the sun in the sky, while the other had been in the outside world for countless years. It was unknown who was stronger and who was weaker. At this time, the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was also hiding in the void, looking at the sacred leader from afar. The Holy Emperor had not left the 9 states insane sect in all these years. The Spectre Patriarch had also come. Although the 4 saints were hidden in the void, everyone could feel the pressure. The War Tribe, the Sword Dao Eternal Sacred Land, and the Martial Dao Perfected Sacred Land were the first to bear the brunt of the pressure. At this time, Yi Qinghan, who was in the depths of the sea, had taken the immortal pill. His will had become a saint, and instantly became 10,000 times stronger. With a wave of his hand, he could use the first 5 forms of the space-piercing star-plucking palm. However, if he wanted to use his peak strength, he still could not use 3 forms in a row. If he wanted to use the 5th form, one move would exhaust him. The worst news was that the heavenly imprisoning Tao scripture sent him a message. His soul had been contaminated by the deathless Qi. If it was contaminated by the mortal world, it would turn into ashes instantly. Therefore, the heavenly imprisoning Tao scripture had always separated his soul from his physical body. He would be imprisoned in his sea of consciousness forever, unless he broke through the shackles one day and reached the great saint realm. He ignored the deathless Qi. Before reaching the great saint realm, Yi Qinghan would be in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. "Let's go back." The waterman left these 4 words before dispersing in the sky above the sea. The goddess of love did not hesitate. She pushed the wheelchair onto the surface of the sea and rode the wind and waves. They traveled 100,000 miles in an instant. She did not even need to use her strength. Yi Qinghan controlled the sea and shrunk the ground into an inch. Time and space could no longer imprison him. His soul was so abnormal that it was far more terrifying than a saint's. Whoosh! The sea parted and made a path. The goddess of love stepped on the clear water and pushed Yi Qinghan forward. Yi Qinghan's eyes were tightly shut. His black hair flew backward, and his hands were on the wheelchair. He could not move at all. However, his perception of the outside world was not inferior to a saint's. His will and soul could mobilize the power of heaven and earth to cast the sacred finger of annihilation and the space-piercing star-plucking palm. Time flew. They spent more than 20 years to step onto the land from the depths of the sea. The goddess of love's eyes flashed. The golden path between heaven and earth led straight to the center of the continent. She pushed the wheelchair and stepped on the golden path. With a smile on her face, she walked into the endless depths of the continent. Chapter 2152. The goddess of love pushed the wheelchair and stepped on the golden light, traveling close to 1,000,000 miles in a day. Yi Qinghan had disappeared for more than 100 years. When he finally reappeared, it instantly alarmed countless experts. However, as he was unconscious, he did not attract too many experts. A few months ago, far away at the entrance of the 9 States Madness Manor, the saints gathered. However, they all watched from afar, not daring to get too close. For great saints stood guard at the 4 corners, hiding in the void and allowing the saints to fight. The 10 saints of the Holy Empire, the 9 prefecture lords, and Xia Jiulong were all gathered here. Xia Jiulong held the 9-dragon fan in his hand, disdainful of the eternal saints that had appeared out of nowhere. Replicas of saints could never be stronger than the real eternal saints. Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and the other peerless experts all came out of the manor and stopped Xia Jiulong at the entrance. Xia Jiulong looked at the group of eternal saints with disdain and said indifferently, "A bunch of ants. Is there no one else in the arrogant sect? Tell Yi Qinghan to come see me personally." The Holy Empire didn't know that Yi Qinghan had been missing for almost 200 years, but Xia Jiulong was still looking for Yi Qinghan. "I don't need Master's help to defeat you." Lin Wutian stepped out forcefully, holding his sword as he looked down at Xia Jiulong. The sword aura around him was natural, and he had already reached the Great Circle. The great eternal swordsman had been studying the way of the sword for countless years, but at this moment, he felt ashamed of his inferiority. A mere junior. This emperor disdains to take action. Is there really no one else in your arrogant sect? Sending a brat who is still wet behind the ears. Xia Jiulong snorted coldly. The saints of the Kuang sect clenched their fists and were filled with murderous intent. Although they had cultivation, they did not have any eternal divine weapons or defensive divine robes. It was impossible for them to fight against Xia Jiulong. However, the people of the Kuang sect were so proud that they would not allow Xia Jiulong to come to their doorstep and cause trouble. Wu Tian, step back and let martial uncle fight first. Let's see how strong Crown Prince Xia Jiulong is. Whoosh! Jiang Jingtian was the first to step out. He grabbed at the air and condensed the qi of heaven and earth into a long spear. With lightning attached to it, his aura soared into the sky. His battle robe fluttered as he turned into the spear god. He soared into the sky and looked down at the saints. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Xia Jiulong's lips curled into a mocking smile. He waved the 9 dragons fan, and the sacred dragon robe bloomed with saintly might. The majestic aura of an emperor rushed out of the clouds. This emperor claims to be number 1 under the heavens, so I am number 1 under the heavens. Those at the same level are all ants. Even if Lin Jiuxing were to appear in this world again, he would still have to rise and fall. Xia Jiulong's voice was grand and thunderous as it rolled out in all directions. Then let's wait and see. In the holy war, my Kuang Zong is not afraid of anyone. Jiang Jingtian pierced through the void with the long spear in his hand. His saint aura was vast and mighty. The spear shattered the sky with lightning and pierced towards Xia Jiulong. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom boom. The might of a saint was definitely not inferior to a veteran saint, causing saints like Wuxian monarch to have goosebumps. This was definitely not the battle prowess of a sage that could be bought in bulk. Instead, it was an existence that possessed the might of a true sage. It was a sage that had been recognized by the heavens and blessed by the great Tao. Roar! Roar! Xia Jiulong waved the 9 dragons' fan, stepping on the stars, and the 9 stars aligned. The 9 dragons' fan commanded the sun, moon, and stars to come out at the same time. The power of the stars gathered into 9 holy dragons that roared in the void, trampling the shackles. In the blink of an eye, they were not far away from Jiang Jingtian. Boom boom boom. Crack crack crack. Jiang Jingtian wielded a spear that was condensed from energy and swept it through the air for thousands of kilometers, shattering mountains and shattering mountains. His spear shattered a holy star dragon, and his body of the war god crushed a holy star dragon with a stomp. He let out an enraged roar that could shatter the river of stars as he clashed with the other holy star dragons. Xia Jiulong, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He waved the 9 dragons' fan in an extremely carefree manner. His eyes were full of disdain. After all, Xia Jiulong had the Eternal Saint artifact, the Eternal Saint robe. The abhijna and secret techniques that he cultivated were of the great sage level. He also had the immortal sealing mark, and a few years ago, he had devoured the life source of the person who stepped on the stars. Jiang Jingtian was indeed powerful, but with this foundation, he would lose miserably. Between saints, the slightest difference could lead to a difference of 1,000 miles. The 8 holy dragons surrounded him, and their fangs tore the mountains and rivers. Jiang Jingtian was like duckweed in a storm, annihilated at any time. Boom boom boom. Another holy dragon was shattered. Jiang Jingtian waved the long spear, and the holy power in the world gathered. With a roar, he unleashed his peak combat strength. The energy instantly shattered the other 7 holy dragons, and the terrifying aftershock shattered everything. The shock wave spread to the galaxy in the blink of an eye, and the visual impact made even the saints in the distance tremble. Jiang Jingtian's hair was messy. The long spear in his hand was formed by holy power, and it consumed too much energy. At this time, he was already panting, but he was still very strong. He frowned and looked at Xia Jiulong. "That's all you got?" Jiang Jingtian said indifferently. "Ha ha ha." Xia Jiulong laughed wildly and said disdainfully, "That was just a warm-up. I have no interest in winning against an eternal saint like you who doesn't even have a decent holy weapon. However, in order to see Yi Qing Han, I will reluctantly defeat you." Whoosh! Xia Jiulong stretched out his hands, and the sun, moon, and stars at the top of the sky erupted. Wind, rain, thunder, and lightning gathered, and the great Tao rumbled. It was still the 34th move of the astral technique, but when Xia Jiulong used it, it was even more terrifying than the Cloud Dragon Sage. Whoosh! Boom! Xia Jiulong struck out with his palm, and the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The mountains and rivers collapsed, and the border of the war tribe was razed to the ground. A huge holy dragon, like a real dragon, followed the palm print and smashed the void, blasting toward Jiang Jingtian. Boom! Roar! Jiang Jingtian mobilized all his battle strength, and his spear shattered the void, directly colliding with the palm print and the holy dragon. Boom! Crack! 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 The long spear in Jiang Jingtian's hand was the first to shatter. In a hurry, he could only use his palms to block it. Boom! At this time, Jiang Jingtian's aura was bursting, and his holy power was monstrous. However, in the face of Xia Jiulong's 34 star arts, it was pale and powerless. After all, his opponent was using a great saint technique, and was supported by an eternal saint artifact. He was instantly repelled. Thud! Thud! No one said that Jiang Jingtian was not strong, but that Xia Jiulong was too strong. At this time, Gu Qingyu wanted to rush out to fight, but he was stopped by Lin Wutian. "Master, let me do it. We are at a disadvantage." We don't have a great saint technique, an eternal saint artifact, or a defensive saint garment. If we continue to fight like this, we will be exhausted. Lin Wuqian bowed. Gu Qingyu clenched his iron fist. He knew that if Jiang Jingtian lost, he would lose too, but he was still angry and somewhat unable to control himself. Don't worry, master. I will get back this fight. Lin Wuqian bowed. Gu Qingyu nodded. His figure flashed, and he rescued Jiang Jingtian. The web between his thumb and index finger was ruptured, and the bones in his hand were broken. Lin Wuqian took a deep breath and stared at Xia Jiulong. A sword light condensed in his eyes, and his whole body turned into a holy sword. Man and sword became one, and he put his palms together to activate the Green Lotus Sword Song. At this time, in order to defeat Xia Jiulong, he was willing to pay any price. Whoosh! In an instant, everything in the world trembled, and the sword Dao roared. Everything turned into divine swords, and they soared into the sky, controlled by Lin Wuqian's sword Qi, and pointed at Xia Jiulong. Green Lotus Sword Song. Saint Lord, who was standing in the void, narrowed his eyes, and his aura suddenly leaked out. Apparently, he was also shocked by Lin Wuqian's Green Lotus Sword Qi. Chapter 2153. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Wuqian's Green Lotus Sword Qi shot up into the sky. The sword radiance shattered the sky. He stood there like a real sword immortal. It's really the Green Lotus Sword Song. How does he know the Green Lotus Sword Song? All the saints were shocked, and their faces were filled with fear. They all quickly retreated, not daring to touch the Green Lotus Sword Qi. Everyone knew that this sword Qi could kill saints. At this moment, the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage and the Emperor Absolute Saint were nervous. They didn't expect the crazy sect to be related to the Green Lotus Sword Fairy. They had to start this sacred war. The Saint Lord retracted his aura again. He didn't rush to attack. He had to figure out why Lin Wuqian knew the Green Lotus Sword Song. The Green Lotus was suppressed in the sky-shrouding secret realm, which was also the Nine States crazy sect. It was suppressed in the depths of hell and couldn't be rescued. Not even a saint. If the Saint Lord didn't attack, the other saints wouldn't. Whoosh! Everything broke and shot up into the sky. It turned into a sword that could pierce through the void and destroy Xia Jiulong at any time. Xia Jiulong was also shocked. He knew the power of the Green Lotus Sword Song. He didn't expect Lin Wuqian to know it. Humph. So what if it's the Green Lotus Sword Song? The Green Lotus Sword Fairy, who lost half of her origin, is here today. I can also suppress her. Xia Jiulong roared. The celestial sealing mark appeared on his forehead. It floated in front of his forehead and suppressed everything. Even a saint couldn't escape death. It was at this point that Lin Wuqian's energy surged. Tens of thousands of swords bowed toward the emperor. Even the everlasting sword saint lost control of his sword and flew away. The Green Lotus Sword Song, my sword will kill all saints. Everything is for me to use. Sword Dao returns to one. I have no Dao. Boom. Whoosh. Lin Wuqian turned into a divine sword and stepped on the void. The Green Lotus Sword pierced through 1,000,000 miles. In the blink of an eye, the divine sword song was in front of Xia Jiulong. Boom. Whoosh. The celestial sealing mark enlarged infinitely and blocked the way. Bang. The Green Lotus Sword Song. The Saint Light tore through everything. The two paragons destroyed everything. The crazy sect saints retreated. Everything in the heaven and earth. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Everything within 1,000 miles of the border of the war clan collapsed. The Green Lotus Sword Qi was invincible, but it was blocked by the celestial sealing imprint. Xia Jiulong stepped on the stars, and the stars changed. He firmly controlled his body. No matter how Lin Wuqian used his power, he couldn't defeat Xia Jiulong. The two supreme saints roared angrily, unwilling to take even half a step back. Holy light soared into the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The divine radiance between heaven and earth stretched for tens of thousands of zhang. Lightning tore through the sky, and the stars became restless. Green lotus gathering crown. Sword songs are good. Whoosh. 3 green lotuses gathered above Lin Wuqian's head, and his entire body turned into a sharp sword. His light was so bright that even the saints could not look directly at him. With a deep roar, he shattered mountains and rivers. His aura was unstoppable. Boom. Thud thud thud. Xia Jiulong was forced back several steps, and the ground caved in. All the saints' expressions changed. Boom boom boom. Lin Wuqian took a few steps forward. Blood oozed out of the corner of his mouth. His eyes looked ferocious as blood flowed out. He was gambling with his life, but Xia Jiulong was not injured. The holy dragon swam around Xia Jiulong's golden body. Its legs were rooted to the ground as if they were rooted to the ground. It was in harmony with heaven and earth, resisting Lin Wuqian's power. Lin Wuqian's aura was slowly weakening. The green lotus sword song relied on the first spurt of energy, the second spurt of energy, and the third spurt of energy. Too much time had passed, and his energy was quickly being drained. Whoosh! He swallowed a mutated peach of immortality. His saint power was surging, and he wanted to erupt again. However, Xia Jiulong's aura was at its peak. He commanded the power of the stars in the sky and directly sent Lin Wuqian flying. Boom! Boom boom boom! Lin Wuqian flew back several thousand meters in the air and landed in a panic. Every step he took shattered mountains and rivers. His blood was surging, and his green lotus seal was broken. His face was pale, and his hair was disheveled. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices, but he was still able to control the situation. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thump thump thump. Lin Wuqian's breathing was rapid. His heart was praying for blessings, and he felt like it was about to explode. Whoosh. Everything under Lin Wuqian's control was shattered into dust by the energy. Although it did not break through Xia Jiulong's defense, it had consumed a lot of his energy. Xia Jiulong's celestial sealing mark dimmed, and his face was pale. The mark quickly shrunk back into his body, and he would not be able to use it again in a short period of time. The heaven and earth quieted down, and Xia Jiulong took a deep breath. He did not expect to be pushed back by a junior. The killing intent in his eyes grew thicker, and a cold light flashed across his eyes. He asked, "Brat, how did you learn the Green Lotus Sword Song?" Since Lin Wuqian decided to use the Green Lotus Sword Song, he had already thought of an answer. He smiled and said indifferently, "Are you talking about the sword just now? I learned it from a tomb south of the heaven-suppressing prefecture. There was a saint's corpse in there, and there was a sword stuck in the corpse. I have only studied it for 1,000 years, and yet I managed to cultivate it to such a level. Seems like my talent is stronger than yours." The Saint Master's eyes narrowed, and he looked at Lin Wuqian from afar. He could not see any signs of him lying. Then, Xia Jiulong added, "No wonder you all have occupied the heaven-suppressing prefecture for so long. So you all are trying to learn the Green Lotus Sword Song." The Saint Master was still suspicious, but after Xia Jiulong's explanation, his suspicions were greatly reduced. How can this Lin Wuqian learn the Green Lotus Sword Song from the sword he used to kill my son? This is clearly the complete Green Lotus Sword Song. Although the Saint Master's suspicions were greatly reduced, he still did not believe Lin Wuqian's words. Despite his suspicions, he did not dare to act recklessly. He was a cautious person, and he was afraid that a powerful immortal would suddenly appear behind the insane sect, even though he had never seen one before. Kill this Lin Wuqian and force Yi Qinghan out. The Saint Master transmitted his voice to Xia Jiulong. Xia Jiulong did not want to leave Lin Wuqian alive. After all, he was a strong opponent, and without the imprint, he might not be able to defeat him. Xia Jiulong never wanted to leave any potential threats alive. Hence, he had already decided to kill Lin Wuqian. Now that it was the Saint Master's request, it was perfectly justified for him to act. Since Yi Qinghan is unwilling to come out, I will send you on your way. Then, I will welcome Yi Qinghan again. Xia Jiulong smiled eerily. In the blink of an eye, Xia Jiulong had arrived in front of Lin Wuqian. The two of them fought in the sky, and the world was filled with sword rays and dragon shadows. In fact, Lin Wuqian still had the Green Lotus origin wooden sword, but he didn't dare to use it. Xia Jiulong couldn't use the celestial sealing imprint anymore, so it was even more difficult to kill. There were shadows everywhere. Lin Wuqian was at a disadvantage and could not counterattack. He could only buy time and wait for an opportunity. The little divine bird in his body had also become a saint, but its strength was very weak. It could easily deal with an upper plane cultivator, but it was much weaker against a saint. It was a complete waste of an immortal elixir. At this time, it was staring at Xia Jiulong, ready to launch a sneak attack. At least it could delay him for a while. Boom! 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 Lin Wuqian retreated step by step. The divine sword in his hand was broken, and his robe was torn. He was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could not break the defense of the holy dragon robe. At this moment, a black shadow broke through the confinement and appeared in front of the cloud dragon sage. Yi Qinghan has appeared. The black-robed man whispered in his ear. The cloud dragon sage looked to the south. Suddenly, a golden path appeared. The universal love saint pushed Yi Qinghan and quickly appeared in front of the saints. Yi Qinghan's hands were hanging on the wheelchair. His eyes were closed, and his body leaned back slightly. He could not even move. His body was completely crippled, and he was in a vegetative state. Yi Qinghan is crippled. Chapter 2154. Thank you for your support, everyone. Let's see if I can release a few more chapters today. Everyone, please continue to read and support the original version. I'm almost done with this chapter. Let's let the mad warrior battle Emperor shine for the last time. Yi Qinghan is crippled. The saints looked through the void and saw Yi Qinghan slumped in a wheelchair. He even needed the universal love saint to push him. They couldn't help but be shocked. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The universal love saint sped up and appeared at the border of the war race. He landed on the ground and pushed Yi Qinghan step by step toward the entrance of the 9 States Madness Manor. The saints of the world stood in the air and looked down. Even Xia Jiulong stopped and stared at the crippled Yi Qinghan. His mouth twitched, but no one knew whether he was happy or sad. Yi Qinghan looked like he had been asleep for more than 100 years. This was definitely not an act. He was really crippled. Boom! Xia Jiulong suddenly became flustered and exasperated. He gave up on Lin Wuqian and charged toward Yi Qinghan. You trash! You're crippled. You haven't even fought me yet. You've left me with no regrets. Today, I'll send you to heaven. Compared to living like this, it must be very painful. Boom! Whoosh! Xia Jiulong shattered the void with his palm. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Yi Qinghan. The goddess of love flipped her jade-like hand and a palm struck out. Holy light soared into the sky. Her figure flashed and her skirt swayed. She was so charming that even the saints trembled. Scram! Bitch, your 9-star saint's soul has been devoured by me. He's become one with me. Submit to me. I'll make sure you're comfortable. Xia Jiulong laughed and used his soul to attack the goddess of love's Dao heart. The goddess of love's heart trembled. She was furious and her eyes shot out golden light. The power to destroy the saints had appeared. For so many years, she had never thought of using this power to destroy humanity. But now, she couldn't hold it in anymore. Don't look into her eyes. Don't touch her destruction laws. The Cloud Dragon Saint rushed from the void and tried to stop the Universal Love Saint. Whoosh! In an instant, the saints of the Madness sect moved. All 18 saints drew their swords and rushed to attack. Stop! At that moment, the Divine Lord appeared above the living beings and looked down upon them. Even the Kuang Zong did not dare to act recklessly. The goddess of love's body flew backward involuntarily. Her battle with Xia Jiulong ended abruptly. The sacred leader stared at Yi Qinghan, who was paralyzed in his wheelchair. At this moment, the wind and clouds surged in the heavens and earth. The energy formed a current of air. Slowly, an illusory figure condensed into reality. It was vivid and lifelike. It was as if the real Yi Qinghan had appeared in the world. Whoosh! The mirage formed by the energy actually pushed Yi Qinghan's wheelchair forward on its own. In an instant, all the saints in the world were speechless. Is Yi Qinghan really crippled? It was obvious that the phantom formed by the qi energy was not produced by anyone else but Yi Qinghan himself. This was a doppelganger formed entirely from his will and divine power. It had a dignified appearance and a towering aura. It was like a battle saint pushing a wheelchair and looking down on all the saints. Even if all the saints in the world were present, there was not the slightest bit of emotion in its eyes. With me around, there is no saint. With me around, who dares to call themselves a saint? Yi Qinghan's doppelganger pushed the wheelchair. His immortal robe emitted a holy light as he walked step by step towards Xia Jiulong. The doppelganger laughed. It was a laugh that made people's hair stand on end. They felt as if their spines were breaking out in cold sweat. Gulp. Many people gasped as cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. They looked at Yi Qinghan, who was unconscious on the chair. He could not even open his eyes, but he could control everything with his will. His physical body has been crippled. His will has been bestowed as a saint. The sacred leader's hoarse voice shocked all the saints in the world. Whoosh! The sky's holy power flowed and condensed into a few large words. The sacred leader is wise. This junior's will has been bestowed as a saint. The large words were soul-stealing. They were like dragons that could swallow mountains and rivers. They displayed Yi Qinghan's unique temperament and aura. They were domineering and arrogant. The sacred leader was speechless. If there was no immortal behind this demon, how could he be so demonic? Whoosh! The sacred leader disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had left this place and was no longer paying attention. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's doppelganger pushed the wheelchair closer to Xia Jiulong. They were originally dozens of miles apart, but in the blink of an eye, they were less than 1,000 meters apart. Xia Jiulong and Yi Qinghan's doppelganger looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. Whoosh! 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 The doppelganger waved his hand, and a line of large words appeared in front of all the saints. Crown Prince, you're bullying others. You took advantage of my absence to bully my junior. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by all the saints in the world? Although the doppelganger was speechless, his aura was even more imposing than his words. Xia Jiulong suddenly grinned. He looked at the unconscious Yi Qinghan and laughed maniacally. I thought I would never have the chance to have a fair fight with you in this lifetime. I didn't expect your will to be bestowed as a saint. Just nice. Today, all the saints will witness whether I can crush you or not. Whoosh! The doppelganger waved his hand again. The large words were filled with Tao techniques and contained an unparalleled pressure. I won't take advantage of you. After bullying my junior for so long, you should be tired. Therefore, I won't bully you. 1 month later, our battle will be in the snowfield of the extreme north. I promised you back then, although it was delayed by 100 years, Yi Qinghan accepted the challenge again. The battle would be in the snowfield. That was the battlefield of saints, so the innocent would not be harmed. Xia Jiulong clenched his fists. He could see that Yi Qinghan was very confident. However, he could not use the immortal sealing imprint. Therefore, he had to endure. 1 more month. Everyone was at their peak. Life and death would depend on this battle. Out of the 2 supremes, only one could survive. Then we'll meet 1 month later at the snowfield of the extreme north. Xia Jiulong took a deep breath. He glanced at all the saints with disdain. Whoosh! Whoosh! Xia Jiulong turned and left. The 9 lords also left. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. All the saints in the world took a deep breath and looked at Yi Qinghan lying in the wheelchair. They felt pity. His physical body was dead, and his will was sanctified. How strong was his will? How strong was his will? How terrifying was his soul? It was a pity that his physical body was destroyed. If he wanted to rely on his will to become a great saint, reconstruct the golden body, and remove the deathly aura, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. Who would not feel pity for a supremacy to be stopped because of this? The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage shook his head helplessly. The deathly aura had already covered Yi Qinghan's soul. He could not remove it. Otherwise, it would destroy Yi Qinghan's soul. At this point, he could only rely on himself. Whoosh! The doppelganger dissipated. The goddess of love quickly returned to his back and continued to push the wheelchair towards the people of the Kuang sect. Her originally charming face was now filled with murderous intent and anger. The original soul and memories of the 9-star saint were taken away. Xia Jiulong was equivalent to the second 9-star saint. He was even twice as strong as the 9-star saint. The combination of 2 supremacies was definitely not 2 supremacies. The goddess of love looked at the sleeping Yi Qinghan and was very worried. If Yi Qinghan fought with Xia Jiulong now, it would be like fighting against Lin Zhouxing and Xia Jiulong together. It was too dangerous. Are you confident? The goddess of love leaned over and asked gently in Yi Qinghan's ear. Yi Qinghan did not reply. It was as if he had fallen into a deep sleep again. Lin Wuxian and the rest rushed over and took Yi Qinghan. The group quickly rushed into the 9 States Madness residence. What's going on? Wasn't he fine before he left? The Holy Emperor asked in a low voice. The goddess of love looked gloomy as she shook her head and sighed. Grandpa, in that battle, the Cloud Dragon Sage destroyed his life force. His performance after the battle was like the final radiance of the setting sun. It is already a miracle that he survived. At this moment, Yi Qinghan once again created a doppelganger. He gave a few simple instructions and then took back his storage ring from Lin Wuxian. He used his divine sense to search inside and found that the resources were almost all used up. It could only be said that it was not bad to have created 18 saints. Wuxian, you guys stay behind. You don't have to participate in this battle. The doppelganger formed a few words and then looked at the goddess of love, hoping that she would continue to push him. After all, creating doppelganger constantly consumed his mind and soul. To fight the current Xia Jiulong, he had to go all out. The universal love saint didn't hesitate. It would take at least a month to reach the extreme north snowy region. He quickly pushed Yi Qinghan's true body out of the 9 States Madness Manor and rushed towards the extreme north snowy plains. All the saints in the world wanted to see the peak battle power of 2 supremacies. So they all rushed towards the extreme north snow region. Chapter 2155. The snowy plains of the extreme north were empty and not suitable for humans to live in. Even upper realms could be frostbitten here. This holy war was destined not to be known by the secular world. Only saints were qualified to watch. Charity Saint pushed Yi Qinghan through the snowy plains alone. Snowflakes danced in the air, cold winds howled, and ice covered millions of miles. A few snow lotuses swayed in the wind. Even thorns could not survive here. Snowflakes danced in the air and dyed their hair white. The Saint of Universal Love slowed down and leaned over Yi Qinghan's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Does this count as our hair turning white together?" Whoosh! The white snow danced, forming a snowman that danced in the snowy plains. The snowflakes formed a large character that dissipated in the blink of an eye. Charity Saint chuckled and pushed Yi Qinghan forward. Her smile was like a flower, more beautiful than the white snow, more beautiful than nature, enchanting all living beings. "Is it very painful? Can't you speak or move your hands?" Charity Saint asked gently. The snowman's smile represented Yi Qinghan's current mood. Yi Qinghan could feel Charity Saint's mood. A trace of joy surged in his heart, but he could not speak or reach out to touch this demoness. "If you win this battle, I will follow you. If you lose, I will also follow you. However, I will also take Xia Jiulong with me to accompany you in death." The Universal Love Saint said resolutely as he slowly pushed Yi Qinghan forward. Universal Love Saint knew that the present Yi Qinghan was very weak. Although it was said that saints did not kill saints, Yi Qinghan was different. His soul had already been tainted by the deathless aura. Once his body was destroyed and his soul came into contact with the mortal world, it would immediately dissipate. Yi Qinghan was not immortal. In fact, he could die easily. Yi Qinghan did not know what to say. Xia Jiulong was different from ordinary saints. Xia Jiulong had devoured Lin Jiuxing's soul and stripped him of his origin. He also had the immortal sealing imprint. No small saint in the world could defeat him. Yi Qinghan himself did not have the slightest confidence. Whoosh, woo-woo, cold winds howled and snow danced in the sky. The two were covered in snowflakes. Their hair and bodies were dyed white. At this moment, the world was beautiful, ethereal, and beautiful. The two walked on the snowy plains, looking at Yi Qinghan and Charity Saint from afar. The three saints were not jealous, but blessed them from the bottom of their hearts. The Holy Emperor was silent the entire way. He suspected that there was an immortal behind Yi Qinghan. If there really was an immortal, why didn't he heal Yi Qinghan's injuries? If 2 choices. In the Xiaohou sacred land, Xiaohou sovereign in Xiaohou, he had arrived at the snowy plains of the extreme north. They were hidden in the snowy mountains, deep in thought. Who should we help? Xiaohou asked in a low voice. Xiaohou he took a deep breath. It was a difficult choice. If they made the wrong choice, the Xiaohou sacred land would be razed to the ground. The winning side would not be merciful. They would take revenge and slaughter all lives. Crack, crack, crack. Xiaohou he clenched his fists and said resolutely, "I'm on the proud sect's side. I became a saint because of Yi Qinghan. This is the cause. Helping them is the effect. Win or lose, I have a clear conscience." Xiaohou was silent. He knew how powerful the Prime was. He was stronger than the Heavenly Grand Master, Great Sage and Saint Emperor. The Prime could easily suppress any great saint with 3 to 5 minor saints. The great saints were the main force of the holy war. Judging from their strength, the sacred nation was sure to win. The two saints of the eternal sacred land were also thinking about the difficult choice. Chess sovereign saint would choose to help Yi Qinghan for his personal feelings. But for the sake of the people of the eternal sacred land, he had to choose the side with a higher chance of winning. The two argued for days without a definite answer. In the end, they had no choice but to give up. The battle ancestor had no room for negotiation. Wu Zhenjuan was the same. Based on the current situation, they would definitely choose to help the proud sect. But for the sake of survival, no one knew who they would help. But there were many sacred lands that would choose to help the sacred nation. Blessed Buddha Temple, Hell, Xixiang Sacred Land. Once the Holy War began, every saint would be the backbone of the forces. The more saints there were, the greater the chance of winning. Everyone was making plans for their own escape. The 3,000 sects did not want to be cannon fodder. They were all actively working. Some contacted the sacred nation, some contacted the sacred nation. But the majority contacted the sacred nation. After all, the sacred nation was an old power. As for the proud sect, who knew if they really had an immortal protecting them? Of course, there were always naive children who imagined that the proud sect had an immortal. They would have no worries after joining the sect, that at this time, Yi Qinghan had been pushed to the snowy plains in the far north. The place was extremely cold. The love saint emitted holy power to protect Yi Qinghan's body. Yi Qinghan looked like he was asleep. In fact, he was constantly cultivating and comprehending the star-picking hand. He hoped to comprehend the sixth style. Once he succeeded, it would be easy to deal with Xia Jiulong. So what if he had the imprint? But the sixth style, let alone comprehending it, he could not even understand it. The runes on the last line of the second page were very harmful to one's soul if one were to look at them with one's spiritual sense. So Yi Qinghan temporarily gave up on the sixth style and focused on the first 5 styles. He hoped to cultivate the star-picking hand to its strongest state. When his soul was tired, he used his mind to swallow the immortal peach to recover. He was always at his peak, not daring to relax. All the saints in the world looked at Yi Qinghan and the love saint. Some were murderous, some were regretful. Xia Jiulong had already reached the center of the battlefield. He sat cross-legged and adjusted his condition. The immortal sealing mark could be used again. The great battle was about to begin. The battle between the supreme saints was inevitable. The Cloud Dragon Sage and the other 9 lords stood behind Xia Jiulong. They stared at the approaching Yi Qinghan and the love saint with murderous intent. However, the light saint, power saint, and life saint also appeared quietly, protecting Yi Qinghan from behind. It was not that the insane sect did not come. They were afraid that Yi Qinghan would be angry. The saints of the insane sect were ready for the holy war. So Jiang Jingtian and Gu Qingyu led the 12 saints and rushed in quietly, ready to protect Yi Qinghan's golden body. The holy master knew the masters of the insane sect like the back of his hand. However, he did not care about them. Instead, he looked at the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage standing on a snowy mountain. His figure flashed and he asked indifferently, "Brother Heavenly Grandmaster, you and I are like brothers. Let me ask you one question. Do you want to become an immortal?" The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage looked at the Holy Master silently and nodded. He replied, "Brother Xia, what do you think?" The Holy Master looked directly at the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage and said in a low voice, "Your divination ability is stronger than mine. In the past 100 years, I know you have done divination. Let me ask you, does the insane sect have immortals?" The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was expressionless and did not reply. Chapter 2156. The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage did not reply, nor did he want to. Once he did, the holy war would begin. This was something he did not want to see. The Holy Lord frowned and asked, "Brother Heavenly Grandmaster, we have been friends for so many years. Are you not willing to help me at the last moment?" The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage raised his head and looked at the Holy Master. After thinking for a while, he said, "Whether there is a celestial or not, it is impossible to predict. You know better than me what level a celestial is and what kind of existence it is. You and I cannot predict it. However, a celestial technique like the Saint Destroying Finger is scarier than the Green Lotus Sword Song. Hence, we all know that there is someone behind him who is stronger than the green lotus sword celestial. The heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was expressionless, but he knew that there was no terrifying existence behind Yi Qinghan. Of course, he was not 100% sure. Yes, we are not his match, but with the ghost deity Grand Sage, it should be easy for 3 Grand Sages to suppress him. No matter how strong he is, I am sure that he is not a real immortal. As long as we understand the Holy Finger, we will have a chance to become immortal. Heavenly Grandmaster, if you help me become immortal, I will not forget you and will help you become immortal. The Holy Lord said directly. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage shook his head and replied honestly, "Sorry, I will not help you. On the contrary, I will stop you from starting the Holy War." "Can you stop me?" "Heavenly Grandmaster, I advise you not to ask for trouble. It is not difficult for me to suppress the Holy Emperor. I just need the ghost deity Grand Sage to delay you for a few days. After suppressing the Holy Emperor, it will be easy for me and him to suppress you." The Holy Lord warned coldly. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage smiled faintly and replied, "Yes, as the Holy Lord, you have not only suppressed one great sage. Back then, the Green Lotus Sword Fairy was suppressed by you and 10 other sages. Although one sage died, you still succeeded. But don't forget, today's 18 sages of the crazed sect will not lose to the 9 Mansion chiefs. As long as I delay you for a few days, do you think the Holy Emperor and the 18 sages can suppress the ghost deity Grand Sage within 5 days? The Holy Lord's face darkened. He clenched his fists but did not act out. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage reminded him once more. Don't forget about Yi Qinghan. After he becomes a saint, what do you think Xia Jiulong's chances of winning are? With Xia Jiulong suppressed, Di Zhisheng, Yi Qinghan, and a few other arrogant sect members would be able to suppress the great sage of Spectre Deity in 3 days. When the time comes, it won't be too difficult for us to join forces and suppress a Holy Master. The Holy Master laughed coldly. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage understood the Holy Master the best. At this moment, he was also uneasy. He was afraid that the Holy Master would start a holy war. However, the Sacred Master wasn't that aggressive. Instead, he looked at Yi Qinghan, who was being pushed by Xia Jiulong and Charity Saint. "This old man will make a bet with you. If Xia Jiulong loses, I will leave. If he wins, you will help me. How about it?" Sacred Master proposed. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage smiled and did not reply to his suggestion. Instead, he said, "We'll see." Whoosh! Woo! The cold wind howled. Snow covered everything. Squinting, Charity Saint pushed Yi Qinghan into the center of the battlefield. More than 30 sages were scattered around. Jiang Jingtian and the other arrogant sect members were still far away. They wouldn't appear unless it was a critical moment. "We're here." Charity Saint leaned on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and whispered. Yi Qinghan did not reply. Not a single snowflake fluttered around him. However, he used his soul to see the entire snowfield. Even the arrogant sect members behind him noticed that all the sages in the world, except for the one suppressed in hell, the peach tree, and Bailey Chen Xiang, who were hiding in other arcane realms, were all here. Not a single one was absent. Including the sages of the arrogant sect, there were more than 50 people. The entire great realm was here. Xia Jiulong stood up from the ground. His aura was majestic. He controlled the snow in all directions. From his aura, it was clear that he was determined to win this battle. Yi Qinghan's emotions didn't show on his face because he couldn't move any part of his body. Moreover, his emotions didn't fluctuate. He just looked at the world silently, without any desires. Xia Jiulong looked at Yi Qinghan as if he was looking at a piece of trash. He smiled and mocked, "Yi Qinghan, I know you. You're a supreme being like me. You'd rather die than live like this." Today, I'll free you. You don't have to thank me. It's your honor to die in my hands. Lin Jiuxing is dead. I stripped his soul origin and used it all for my own use. Now, you're fighting against me in Lin Jiuxing. Even if you die in battle, you should be recorded in the annals of history. Yi Qinghan's mind moved. Snow fell from the sky and covered the sage's eyes. Then, the snow condensed into a large character that stood proudly in the world. I'm not a saint. Lin Jiuxing is nothing in my eyes. As for you, I'll let all the sages in the world see you get trampled under my feet. Ha ha ha, Xia Jiulong laughed and waved his hand to shatter the large character. He stepped on the ice mountain and walked to the center of the battlefield. He gestured with his hand and said, Yi Qinghan, you're already a cripple. I shouldn't have taken you as an opponent, but the younger generation is too useless. Apart from you, no one else is worthy of my attention. How lonely. Whoosh. The character rose again. Yes, it's too cold up there, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Woo woo woo. A cold wind blew and snow condensed into a crystalline snowman that looked almost identical to Yi Qinghan. He wore a snowy robe and emanated an oppressive celestial aura. The pressure he exuded made the saints back down. Everything was in Yi Qinghan's control. This snowman seemed to be stronger than the sages, even if that snowman would shatter at the slightest touch. Whoosh! The snowman waved its hand and formed a seal. Heaven and earth roared. The vast snowfield became Yi Qinghan's weapon. Every snowflake became a killing weapon that could steal the sages' souls. This was not the finger of annihilation, but the sky-shattering star-plucking hand. The snowman did not make any unnecessary movements. It directly formed a seal and waved its hand to shatter the void. Then, it formed a second move. Star-plucking hand. The snowman activated the power of the heavenly Tao. It waved its hand to pluck the stars and steal the sages' souls. Its large hand directly grabbed at Xia Jiulong. Boom! Xia Jiulong waved his hand and activated the 9-dragon fan. 9 snow dragons roared and shook the mountains and rivers. They wanted to devour the snowman and destroy Yi Qinghan's body and kill his soul. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. In an instant, the snowman's hand crushed one of the snow dragons. It was as if Xia Jiulong's attack was weak. The snowman turned its wrist and moved the snow to form several large hands that covered the sky. It suppressed the remaining snow dragons. It looked so ordinary, but it killed without leaving a trace. Whoosh! The snowman's hand shattered the void and appeared in front of Xia Jiulong in the blink of an eye. Xia Jiulong was shocked. He took several steps back and slashed his 9-dragon fan at the snowman. However, the snowman seemed to have a life of its own. It was more like Yi Qinghan's body. It turned its hand into a claw and flipped its arm. It dodged the 9-dragon fan and grabbed at Xia Jiulong's wrist. Whoosh! Boom! Xia Jiulong stomped his foot and flew into the sky. He dodged the snowman's attack and slashed at the snowman's back. The third move, overturning the heavens and destroying the half-saint. Boom boom boom. Whoosh! The snowman's palm overturned the sky and shattered the snowfield. Airwaves spread in all directions. The snowflakes turned into divine weapons and attacked Xia Jiulong from all directions. The large hand was like the heavenly Tao's attack. No matter how Xia Jiulong tried to escape, he could not escape from the 5-finger mountain. At this moment, all the sages' hair stood on end. This simple attack contained the heavenly Tao. It was impossible to resist. It was like a punishment from the heavens. It could suppress a sage with a wave of its hand. This was only the third move. The fourth and fifth moves had not even begun, but they were already so powerful. Even the Cloud Dragon Sage was furious. If they were in Xia Jiulong's place, none of them would dare to say that they could block Yi Qinghan. Chapter 2157. The second celestial technique appeared. The sacred leader was even more confused. She had some doubts before, but now she didn't even dare to doubt it. Who in the world could create two celestial techniques? Other than immortals? Hiss. The sacred leader took a deep breath. Her fingertips trembled. She didn't dare to rashly start a supreme sage battle. Whoosh, Yi Qinghan's snowman overturning the sky palm tore through the sky. A giant hand blotted out the sky as it pressed down from above, shattering all the ice on the snowy plains. The snowy plains sank down over 1,000 meters. Xia Jiulong tried to evade and roared, but he couldn't escape at all. The technique imprisoned all directions. Xia Jiulong was like a trapped beast, unable to escape the attack range. A trapped beast would still fight. It was a perfect description of Xia Jiulong at this moment. Xia Jiulong roared. Veins popped out all over his body. The sacred dragon robe was already at its peak power. The 9 dragons' fan split into 9 sacred dragons and soared into the sky with him, trying to shatter the huge hand. Boom, the peak attacks of the two powerhouses collided. The impact exceeded the limit. They were both supreme sages of the same level. At this moment, they were competing with supernatural powers. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan used celestial techniques. The snowman's palm shattered the 9 dragons. Xia Jiulong was suppressed into the abyss. The snowfield collapsed, and snowflakes broke through the mountains and rivers. Bang bang bang. Crack crack crack. Xia Jiulong's body broke through mountains and rivers. He was smashed into the deep pit and broke through several layers of the snowfield. The 9 dragons' fan fell beside him, staining the sacred dragon robe with blood. The snowman was also shattered by this blow. It scattered between heaven and earth. Within 10,000 miles, the sages were enraged. As Yi Qinghan said, there was no sage in the world. If he was a sage, could the other eternal sages still be called sages? Yi Qinghan's original body was still lying in the wheelchair. He didn't move at all. His powerful soul resisted the aftershock. At this moment, he was dizzy, but he quickly calmed down. Charity Saint stabilized the wheelchair. Her jade hands were covered in cold sweat. She was also afraid that Yi Qinghan's will and soul would be exhausted. And Xia Jiulong still had the immortal seal imprint. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dong dong dong. The saints were unable to calm down. Their breathing quickened and their hearts prayed for blessings. They felt as if their hearts were about to explode. Their faces were pale as they gazed at Xia Jiulong and Yi Qinghan in the distance. This battle was not over yet. It could only be said that it had just begun. Qinghan, are you all right? Charity Saint asked gently. However, Yi Qinghan did not respond. Every extra bit of strength was a good thing. The one who could last until the end would be the final victor. This was especially so for Yi Qinghan. Right now, he was relying on his soul, will, and spiritual power. Every bit of his soul was a loss. Yi Qinghan didn't respond to her, but that didn't mean that he had lost consciousness. Instead, he was gathering even more power to use the 4th or 5th move to directly destroy Xia Jiulong. The 4th move, condensing qi into Saint Seal. Whoosh! A vast and majestic aura swept over from the edge of heaven and earth. The snowman condensed again, and with a wave of his hand, he mobilized the power of the mountains and rivers. He condensed the qi into a Saint Seal, and a Saint Seal bloomed with Saint Light. The nebula in the sky was no longer there, and thousands of stars flashed. Whoosh! The snowman waved his hand and plucked the stars, condensing them into a Saint Seal. A star transformed into a square Saint Seal, and under the Saint Seal, mysterious runes constantly condensed. Every mark was engraved with the mysteries of the Tao, runes that could destroy and suppress a saint. In the center of the runes under the Saint Seal, a huge word appeared, astounding saint. Immortal. This strike was enough to kill a saint, and a powerful one at that. Even a saint like Xia Jiulong would be killed by the saint seal. Xia Jiulong, who was lying in a pool of blood, had his facial muscles contorted from the impact of the saint seal. However, there was no time for him to hesitate. Whoosh! Roar! An angry roar came from the abyss, as if a peerless beast had emerged from the abyss. A surge of energy shattered the galaxy, and it reached the clouds. An immortal sealing mark appeared on Xia Jiulong's forehead, transforming into an immortal seal. The immortal light tore through the mountains and rivers, shattering the abyss. The abyss continued to expand, and the snow turned into water. Whoosh! Boom! Xia Jiulong stepped into the abyss, and with the immortal sealing mark, he soared into the sky and appeared above the water. His aura was monstrous, and his killing intent was so dense that it was tangible. Just his killing intent alone could destroy countless upper plane cultivators. Yi Qinghan, you are very strong. However, you rely on your immortal techniques, while I rely on my immortal sealing mark. Killing you is not considered bullying you. Xia Jiulong gritted his teeth and stared at Yi Qinghan in the distance. He actually wanted to attack Yi Qinghan's main body. Swoosh! Swoosh! The snowman's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Yi Qinghan's main body. He formed a seal with both hands, and the saint seal condensed from the stars in the sky was pulled into his palms. He crossed his hands, and the saint seal was filled with the mysteries of killing saints. Every blade mark was bestowed by an immortal technique. Killing a saint was not a problem. If Yi Qinghan's soul was strong enough, killing a great saint would not be a problem. Xia Jiulong, I will send you to the Western Paradise today. A few large words appeared in the sky, and they were soul-stirring. Whoosh! The snowman controlled the saint seal, and with a push of his hands, the snowman collapsed. However, the saint seal expanded infinitely, and the immortal character in the center of the saint seal broke free from its restraints and attacked Xia Jiulong. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the snowy plains were torn apart. Countless snowy mountains collapsed, destroying heaven and earth. Just the word immortal could kill a saint, and the sage seal behind it suppressed Xia Jiulong with boundless immortal power. Xia Jiulong's black hair flew backward like steel needles piercing through space and time. Even his holy dragon robe dimmed. Xia Jiulong formed a seal with both hands, and the immortal sealing mark expanded infinitely. Immortal force surged, and it attacked the saint seal and the immortal character. The immortal seal should have a slight advantage over the saint seal, but Yi Qinghan had comprehended the fourth style of the heaven-breaking star-plucking hand, and he was very familiar with it. Unfortunately, Xia Jiulong had not comprehended the immortal sealing mark, and he did not even understand the true mysteries of the immortal sealing mark. At most, they were evenly matched. Boom! The two marks shattered, and the void was shattered. The deafening sound almost shattered the Tao heart of the saints. This was not a battle between saints, but almost comparable to a great saint. Whoosh! Whoosh! Holy light and immortal force spread for thousands of miles. Everyone retreated, and only Yi Qinghan, Charity Saint, and Xia Jiulong remained in the center of the battlefield. Charity Saint's seductive face was pale, and she was sweating profusely. However, she refused to let go of the wheelchair, and refused to let go of Yi Qinghan. She kept retreating, and two footprints appeared on the ice beneath her feet. Thud! 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 Xia Jiulong took one step at a time, leaving behind a footprint. Countless years of ice were crushed. Traces of blood appeared on his forehead, and blood gushed out from the corner of his mouth. The immortal imprint unleashed even more immortal might, and the sound of the condensed star crumbled. However, the immortal character was still as powerful as a rainbow. It crushed the immortal imprint and directly sent it back into Xia Jiulong's forehead. Bang! Pft! Xia Zhilong was sent flying, and he fell heavily in front of the 9 lords, almost fainting. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's wheelchair was shattered. His body fell on the ice, and he was no longer breathing. This made everyone extremely nervous. No one knew if Yi Qinghan still had the strength to fight. The current Yi Qinghan could no longer be understood by ordinary people. Charity Saint was so nervous that her clothes were drenched in sweat. She grabbed Yi Qinghan's large hand and hurriedly said, "Qinghan, hang in there. You're about to win." At this moment, Yi Qinghan's soul felt like it was being cut by a knife. He was muddle-headed, and he couldn't even distinguish the scene 100 meters away. He could only hear Charity Saint's shouts in a daze, and his spiritual sense became clearer and clearer. Chapter 2158. Yi Qinghan's soul felt like it was being cut by a knife. He was muddle-headed, but Charity Saint's constant calls finally woke him up a little. However, his soul was too exhausted, and the world around him was a blur. However, Xia Zhilong wasn't having it easy either. He had already fainted, and a bloody mark appeared on his forehead. He kept coughing up blood. The sacred dragon robe dimmed, and the 9-dragon fan was almost broken. His limbs were twisted, and he lay on the frozen ground, barely breathing. Zhilong. Cloud Dragon Saint and the other 9 lords all gathered around him, pouring their saint power into him to heal his wounds. This was a shameless act, but no one accused her of it. This was because the universal love saint was pressing her forehead against Yi Qinghan's, using her own soul to nourish Yi Qinghan's soul. She had given him 4/5 of her soul energy. Charity Saint's face was as white as snow. She knelt in front of Yi Qinghan's forehead, so tired that she couldn't even stand properly. Yi Qinghan's soul was blessed by Charity Saint, and he woke up after a while. His soul had recovered about 80%. Whoosh! The ice and snow changed order, forming a frosty wheelchair. The snowman reappeared, automatically lifting Yi Qinghan and Charity Saint into the wheelchair. Boom! The snowman collapsed, and the wheelchair slowly slid forward. Yi Qinghan's hair was all white, and his entire body seemed to be frozen. However, his soul was becoming more and more awake. His divine sense covered the snowy plains, and he looked at the 9 lords and Xia Zhilong. His killing intent had condensed into a solid form, causing the surrounding cold wind to chill to the bone. A person in a vegetative state whose soul was in a muddle-headed state. Even saints were frightened and didn't dare to get too close. A wave of killing intent swept through heaven and earth. Even the great saints became serious, and their auras leaked out. All the saints in the world retreated far away, and the 9 lords were the first to leave. Roar! Xia Zhilong stood up like a wild beast, and his eyes shone with divine light. The immortal sealing mark was even more soul-stirring. His eyes flashed red, and his killing intent soared to the sky. The 9 lords had stored their power in Xia Zhilong's body, allowing him to use his strongest battle power. This attack was probably not much weaker than the Spectre Patriarchs. Once it clashed with Yi Qinghan, the shockwaves could probably injure an ordinary eternal saint. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan controlled the wind and snow with his mind, forming 2 soul-stealing characters. Leave. It was a simple word, but it contained an incomparably firm will. It also indicated that even an eternal saint would not be able to withstand the aftermath of the next attack. The saint of universal love was unwilling to leave and said in a low voice, "I've said it before. If you win, I'll follow. If you lose, I'll still follow." If he won, he would live. If he lost, he would die without a doubt. There was no third option for Yi Qinghan. However, Yi Qinghan did not allow her to refuse. With a thought, the wind and snow surged and directly swept the Holy of Charity away. In the blink of an eye, they appeared 1,000 miles away. The Absolute Saint waved his hand and took away the Universal Love Saint, not allowing her to act recklessly. At this moment, Yi Qinghan and Xia Jiulong's auras were increasing. Their energies clashed and their halos rushed into the clouds, forming two auroras. They were gorgeous and beautiful, but the saints didn't dare to touch them. Yi Qinghan, your luck really makes me jealous. Even a cripple can make an immortal take notice of you and pass on two immortal techniques to you. Crack crack crack. Xia Jiulong clenched his iron fists and stared at Yi Qinghan. His eyes were full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Whoosh, on the frost war chariot, Yi Qinghan's body leaned against the crystal-clear wheelchair. Even his hair had turned silver, and his soul was extremely dignified. At this moment, it could be seen that there were 9 powers hidden in Xia Jiulong's body. It was the power of the 9 lords. If he couldn't kill him in one blow, there was no need to continue this battle. That was because his soul power was limited. The power that the Holy of Universal Love had just given him was only enough for one last blow. Yi Qinghan did not respond to Xia Jiulong. Instead, he gathered all of his soul power and activated the 5th move of the sky-piercing star-plucking hand. The 5th move, condense stars into a sword, sees a saint's soul from 10,000 miles. It could kill a saint within 10,000 miles. Without a doubt, this move could kill a saint. It was not impossible to kill a saint. Whoosh! A hand of nothingness seized the air, and the huge hand that covered the sky crushed a star. The star was compressed and turned into a thin divine sword that hung in the air. A divine sword formed by a star was as heavy as a star and even more powerful than the thunder god's hammer. As soon as the divine sword was formed, lightning attached to it and celestial spells shrouded it. It was constantly engraved with runes that contained the power to kill saints. A snowy human figure danced in front of Yi Qinghan. His hands crossed, and the divine sword tore through space and time, appearing in front of the snowy figure. Boom! The snowy figure seemed to materialize. He held the divine sword with both hands and stood in front of his forehead. He and the sword became one, causing the heavens to roar. All the techniques gathered on the divine sword, and the power of heaven and earth was attached to the sword. This was an immortal technique. It was much more advanced than a great saint technique. Everyone was mesmerized. A great saint could pluck a star with a wave of his hand, but to condense it into a sword in an instant, a great saint could not do it. Neither the Divine Lord or the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage could do it. Boom! Crack crack crack. Whoosh, the snowy figure moved, trampling mountains and rivers. The divine sword tore through the void like a shooting star. The moment Xia Jiulong's imprint appeared, it was pushed back into his consciousness by a terrifying aura. At this moment, even his saint power was in chaos. He was so frightened that he used all his saint power to escape. In the blink of an eye, he was thousands of miles away. Unfortunately, his speed was not as fast as the divine sword. Hum! Whoosh, the divine sword pierced through the void and appeared behind Xia Jiulong. He had no choice but to turn around and use the imprint to smash the divine sword. Boom! Splat! The divine sword pierced through the celestial sealing imprint like a hot knife through butter. It repelled the celestial sealing imprint and cut it into his body. Then, the divine sword pierced through his chest, piercing through his holy dragon robe. Ah! After a blood-curdling scream, the saint-killing runes on the divine sword shattered Xia Jiulong's vitality and destroyed his soul. The divine sword carried his body through thousands of miles and crashed into the highest peak of the snowy plains in the extreme north, nailing Xia Jiulong to death on the snowy peak. Xia Jiulong's body hung on the snowy mountain. The holy dragon robe was torn, and the soul of the holy dragon in the robe was killed. Just like that, Xia Jiulong was dead. All was silent and the saints were silent. Everyone looked at the Supreme Being, who had been the most powerful being in the world since birth. Now, he had died just like that. However, dying because of an immortal's art was not a waste of his life's glory. Xia Jiulong's hands hung down and he was completely limp. Then, his body was frozen by the extreme cold and his body was covered with icicles. At the moment of Xia Jiulong's death, Yi Qinghan's frost chariot retreated thousands of miles in the blink of an eye, leaving a deep mark in the ice plains. Hum! Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the saints of the insane sect quickly rushed forward and stood in front of Yi Qinghan. They were afraid that his body would be destroyed by the enemy. The Divine Lord was silent. He looked at Xia Jiulong and then at Yi Qinghan. He did not dare to make a move. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was obviously on Yi Qinghan's side. After all, they were master and disciple. The aura of a holy emperor erupted. The ice elements condensed into a frost sword, waiting for the Divine Lord to make a move. Yi Qinghan had unleashed this attack. Although his will and spiritual energy were exhausted, he was still conscious. He looked at the Divine Lord. A line of golden words appeared under his feet, causing the Divine Lord to tremble. The immortal path has emotions, and so does the heavens. How can a heartless person become an immortal? Chapter 2159. Yi Qinghan did not have the strength to unleash the sixth style. Naturally, he could not fight against a great sage. He could not even defeat the ghostly patriarch, let alone the Divine Lord. He could only use psychological warfare to intimidate the Divine Lord. The Divine Lord did not dare to attack. He had the highest chance of becoming an immortal. There was no need to risk offending an immortal, even though he could not be sure if Yi Qinghan had an immortal backing him. At this moment, two great sages appeared and stood not far from Yi Qinghan. Even if the Divine Lord dared to attack, he would not have the chance. In the end, the Divine Lord left with the 9 mansion lords. The sacred war started because of Xia Jiulong and ended because of him. The flames of the sacred war were extinguished. Watching the Saint Lord leave, the exhausted Yi Qinghan retracted his soul and fell into a deep sleep once again. This time, he had used up all of his soul power. His dried-up soul power and consciousness were regenerated and quickly poured out. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage watched as the Kuang sect escorted Yi Qinghan away. He did not chase after them. His prediction ability was the strongest. He did not predict that Yi Qinghan had someone backing him. Hence, he knew that he could only rely on Yi Qinghan to hold on and intimidate the Divine Lord. Otherwise, the sacred war would break out. The first to step on the path to immortality should be Fan Yin. Little guy, you might be disappointed. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage watched Yi Qinghan's back as he left and said quietly. Fan Yin was only in the full circle of the upper level. However, the Heavenly Grandmaster sect had an elixir that made it easy for him to become a saint. However, he was still far from becoming a great sage. No one knew why the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was so sure that Fan Yin would be the first to ascend to immortality. Yi Qinghan did not know, and neither did the others. Emperor, Almighty Saint, and the others escorted Yi Qinghan back to 9 States Madness Manor. Yi Qinghan killed Xia Jiulong in this battle and became famous everywhere. The insane school, which was still expanding, attracted the attention of all the heroes in the world. They all rushed to 9 States Madness Manor in hopes of becoming an immortal. However, after Yi Qinghan returned to the 9 States Wild Mansion, he had not appeared again. For 1,000 years, he had been in seclusion, cultivating his will and spiritual energy. His soul had become stronger and stronger, and he had already comprehended the saint-killing finger to the great completion stage. Unfortunately, without the support of a physical body, it was extremely difficult to reach the great completion stage. Even if he could comprehend the saint-killing finger, he would not be able to use it. Due to the limitations of his physical body, Yi Qinghan stopped at the pinnacle of the saint realm. He was much weaker than other saints and could die easily. Yi Qinghan, who had been silent for 1,000 years, appeared again. The insane school had not produced a single saint in the past 1,000 years, and it was still the same 18. Including Yi Qinghan and your saint, they had the largest number of saints. However, they were still not as strong as the four forces with supreme saints. After 1,000 years of development, the insane school had reached its peak. Its army had exceeded 3 million, its outer sect had more than 100,000 people, and its inner sect had less than 50 people. However, due to the lack of population in the territory, the development was very slow. The first thing Yi Qinghan did when he came out of seclusion was to gather the 18 saints to discuss how to move the entrance of the 9 states domain to the entrance of 9 states Madness Manor. Although 9 states Madness Manor was a small domain, the people inside could be trusted. If a genius was born, he could be accepted into the outer sect. Moving the location of a small domain was very difficult, but destroying it was very simple. The 18 saints were also helpless. If they gave up the small domain of the 9 states, the people of the 9 states might not be willing. After all, it was their ancestral land. There were many places that could not be given up, especially the ancestral land of Chaos Continent. That was the birthplace of the insane school. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. When Yi Qinghan came out of seclusion, the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage returned all the ultimate divine gold that Yi Qinghan had given him. He also gave him some of the celestial materials that he had accumulated over the years. They were enough to make 3 sets of eternal divine instruments. Yi Qinghan could not make eternal divine instruments with just his soul. In the end, he asked the Holy Emperor, who had been staying outside the 9 states Madness Manor. The Holy Emperor had not left the 9 states Madness Manor except for one trip back. He did not dare to go back, because if he did, the Holy Master would join forces with the ghostly Grandmaster to suppress him. Even if Yi Qinghan and the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage wanted to help, they would not have the chance. For so many years, he was willing to be a guard of the insane school. He found a small place at the entrance and cultivated there. The Holy Emperor was embarrassed to stay in the insane school. Now that the insane school could use it, he was very happy. He was willing to make Yi Qinghan an eternal divine instrument. He even added some celestial materials. The Holy Emperor of Universal Love pushed Yi Qinghan's frost chariot and stood in front of the Holy Emperor. Yi Qinghan used his mind to control the holy power between heaven and earth. He condensed it into a human form and communicated with words. No need for sets. There are too many saints in the insane school and too few celestial materials. Let's make a suitable holy weapon for everyone. Then, Yi Qinghan used his holy power to condense the holy weapons. He understood the habits of the insane school and designed the shapes of the holy weapons for them. A long spear, 6 unique swords of different shapes, and a long staff. All the celestial materials were only enough to make 8 holy weapons. Yi Qinghan could only choose to make the strongest holy weapons first. The Holy Emperor of Universal Love looked at the holy weapons condensed by Yi Qinghan and nodded in agreement. Just then, the Holy Emperor of Universal Love bowed and said, "Grandfather, I have to take sect leader Yi away for a while. It may be a long time. Where are you going?" The Holy Emperor of Universal Love frowned. The world was silent now, but the holy war was about to break out. It was too dangerous outside. "I can't tell you for now. This is sect leader Ye's special arrangement." This time, he said that he must go to that place. Maybe there's a chance to change the situation, save the body, and erase the deathless qi in the soul, the Holy Emperor of Universal Love replied respectfully. Knowing that it was Yi Qinghan's decision, the Holy Emperor of Universal Love did not dare to stop him. He could only say in a muffled voice, "Be careful." Now that the world situation was settled, the crazy sect and the Holy Empire were both settling down and gathering strength. The Holy Emperor of Universal Love was comprehending the sacred finger of annihilation and the star-picking hand. As long as he succeeded, it would be the time of death for the sky-reaching sect, the Holy Emperor of Universal Love, and Yi Qinghan. Whether or not there was an immortal, he would not be afraid. Now that the great world was in chaos, the powerful sects and clans were killing each other. They all wanted to take a step forward and prepare for the Holy War in the future. The end of the Holy War was the world of the strong. The weak could only wait to be slaughtered. No one wanted to sit and wait for death. Forces like the blessed Buddha temple that bemoaned the heavens and pitted the fate of mankind had all retreated. They no longer helped the people of the world. The sky-reaching sect, on the other hand, wantonly sent experts to the major forces to persuade them, hoping to stop this catastrophe. Unfortunately, it was useless. They could only teach ordinary creatures to save themselves and provide them with a temporary place to live. The other holy lands stood aside and watched. The whole world was in chaos. The various small domains were invaded by the great world. The other secret realms no longer opened once every 10,000 years. Instead, the strong were respected. They plundered resources everywhere to prepare for the Great War. The Holy Emperor of Universal Love pushed Yi Qinghan into the Great World. He saw that there were battles everywhere. Even the Holy Lands were involved. Although the saints did not participate, the power was still terrifying. There were corpses everywhere. Some were even lying on the streets. Their corpses were exposed in the wilderness. There was no one to bury them. Chapter 2160. Yi Qinghan watched the great world descend into chaos, but his emotions did not fluctuate. This was all caused by human greed and panic. Even the great sages were powerless to resolve this chaos. They could only rely on themselves. The Saint of Universal Love pushed Yi Qinghan forward rapidly. In just a few months, they had crossed a holy land and entered the territory of the sky-reaching church, rushing toward the northeast. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage naturally knew that Yi Qinghan and the Universal Love Saint had entered the territory of the Heavenly Grandmaster Church. However, he did not welcome them because he knew that Yi Qinghan was not here for him. Within the Heavenly Grandmaster realm, Fan Yin was in secluded meditation. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage had sped up her cultivation, and she was now in the middle stage of the upper level. Soon, she would reach the peak of the upper level and become a half-saint. On this day, the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage awakened Fan Yin. Fan Yin still did not know that Yi Qinghan was in a vegetative state. He wanted to go out and find him, but he was stopped by the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage. Fan Yin, I have something to tell you, said the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage in a deep voice. This was the first time Fan Yin saw the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage so serious. She asked curiously, "What's wrong, old man? You have been in closed-door cultivation for 300 years. Many things have happened during this period. Today, I will tell you about them," said the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage softly. Fan Yin could tell that something was amiss. If there was nothing serious, the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage would not have such an expression. He would not be so serious with Fan Yin. Fan Yin sat at the side and watched the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage. After Yi Qinghan disappeared, he appeared again. However, he has become a living dead. His physical body is dead, and his soul is tainted with the deathless aura. However, his soul has become a saint, and he has cultivated a second immortal technique, the heaven-breaking star-plucking hand. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage looked at Fan Yin and said slowly, "Xia Jiulong has devoured the soul of the nine-star saint and stripped him of his origin. He has also become a saint, and has become a supreme being. He has just become a saint, and has the immortal sealing mark. His strength is comparable to that of a half-step great saint. Unfortunately, he still couldn't resist Yi Qinghan, and was completely obliterated. His soul and physical body were destroyed, and the immortal sealing mark left his body." Fan Yin was dumbfounded, unable to accept such a fact. A supreme being of a generation, from birth until just a while ago, Xia Jiulong had always maintained the glory of being the number one under the heavens. To think that he would be killed by a young man after becoming a saint. As for Yi Qinghan, he had actually become a living dead. Fan Yin was even more unable to accept this. That handsome face always had an unruly smile, always radiating an evil aura, yet incomparably bright. Who would have thought that he would become a living dead today? His physical body was already dead, and his soul was still tainted with the deathless aura. Once his physical body was destroyed, he would definitely die. Where is little Yi Zi now? Fan Yin stood up and wanted to take a look. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage shook his head and said, "Your mission now is not to find Yi Qinghan, but to find the immortal sealing mark. As for Yi Qinghan, he has no chance. No matter how strong his soul is, once his physical body is dead, he will never have the chance to enter the great sage realm. Even if he has immortal spells, he will never be able to enter the path of immortal ascension." What? Fan Yin's eyes widened. He could not understand the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage's words. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage was silent. He did not know how to explain it to Fan Yin. He could only say, "You will understand in the future. Once you obtain the immortal sealing mark, you will understand. Sometimes, it's not that you don't want to do something, but that you are forced to do it by an invisible hand." Fan Yin looked at the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage in confusion and asked, "Where is the immortal sealing mark?" The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage smiled mysteriously and pointed to the sky. He said, "Only the heavens know. Go, the one with great destiny. Right now, only you and the Holy Master have the chance to become immortal. If you don't become immortal, it will be him. As for Yi Qinghan, I can't see through him, but based on reality, he has no chance. Why me? My powers are not even that of a saint." Fan Yin could not understand. Because of fate. Many times, fate plays tricks on people. The Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage looked up at the sky, his eyes filled with helplessness. He also wanted to become immortal, but the path of immortal ascension was chaotic. He would be lost on the path, and from then on, he would be lost. He could predict the future, so he did not dare to take the risk. Just as the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage and Fan Yin were conversing, Yi Qinghan and the Saint of Universal Love traversed the sky above the Heavenly Grandmaster sect. Half a day after they left, Fan Yin walked out of the Heavenly Grandmaster realm and brushed past Yi Qinghan. The Saint of Universal Love pushed Yi Qinghan straight towards the East Sea, towards the coiling Dragon Island. The Nine Lords naturally found Yi Qinghan's tracks, but now that the Holy Master was in seclusion, who would dare to assassinate Yi Qinghan without the Holy Master? The fifth move of the star-plucking hand could kill a saint from thousands of miles away. Before they could even get close to Yi Qinghan, the Cloud Dragon Sage and the others would be killed. Saints were all afraid of death, so the Nine Lords only dared to watch Yi Qinghan head towards the coiling Dragon Island, and did not dare to stop him. Just like that, the Saint of Universal Love pushed Yi Qinghan without any obstructions, crossing mountains and seas, and spending a lot of time to reach the coiling Dragon Island. The Saint of Universal Love smiled, welcoming the sea breeze and stepping on the sand. The frost chariot shone with golden light under the sunlight, filled with runes and mystical mysteries. Even the scorching sun could not melt the chariot. "That person you spoke of, does he have a chance to save you? Can he really erase the deathless aura in your soul?" The Saint of Universal Love asked gently. Whoosh! The seawater churned, forming a few large words. "Let's try, I'm not sure either." Yi Qinghan's soul was extremely relaxed, and he quickly replied. The Saint of Universal Love, however, was filled with hope. She had heard of the immortal peach tree, but no one had been able to find it. Other than the great sage Bailey Longxian who had interacted with it, no one else had the chance to meet it. This great sage was full of mysteries and was all-knowing. I'll teach you an immortal technique. Although I can't speak, I can use words to replace it. My chances of becoming an immortal are too low, I hope you can help me fulfill my regrets. The seawater churned, and large words appeared in the air before dissipating, forming a human figure. His immortal robes shone brightly, and his body was lifelike. His face was almost identical to Yi Qinghan's, filled with tenderness. He waved his hand and gathered a sword, moving the mountains and seas, killing the sea until it was silent and all living things were floating. Whoosh! Whoosh! The waterman formed a seal, reaching the clouds. With a wave of his hand, he plucked the stars and condensed the sage seal. Immortal runes were engraved all over the sage seal, filling it with the power to kill a sage. Yi Qinghan's every step and every detail of the operation of the Saint Force was very detailed. However, everyone's opportunities were different. It was not that the Saint of Universal Love was not stupid, nor was she lacking in talent, but in the face of such an immortal technique, it was so difficult to understand that even with Yi Qinghan's guidance, she could not condense it into a seal. The Saint of Universal Love spent a few years on the first 3 moves, but only managed to comprehend the tip of the iceberg. She did not have such an immortal fate, and could only sigh. Yi Qinghan did not know fatigue. He taught the Saint of Universal Love while comprehending it himself. After all, he had not comprehended every move and style to perfection. Just like that, the two cultivated as they traveled. A year later, they appeared in the northeast of the Coiling Dragon Island. The entrance to the Coiling Dragon mystic realm was right in front of them. Chapter 2161. The Coiling Dragon's secret realm was filled with desolation and pressure, making it hard for ordinary people to breathe. After so many years, this place was desolate and uninhabited. However, the area ahead was a mess, as though it had been trampled by a large group of experts. Yi Qinghan's divine sense covered 10,000 li and indeed found many experts plundering resources. Some were strong while some were weak, but most of them were from the 3,000 sects and the 100 great clans. These people were truly everywhere. Now that the restrictions of the sacred grounds were greatly reduced, the law couldn't punish the majority. Everyone was fighting for resources, and the saints were like clay bodhisattvas crossing the river. They couldn't even protect themselves. Charity Saint pushed Yi Qinghan forward. There were bloodstains and traces of battle everywhere. Corpses were strewn across the wilderness, and there wasn't even anyone to bury them. However, there were many weaklings who profited from the corpses, taking the fake saint robes of the upper and middle realm experts and their weapons. Charity Saint shook her head and sighed. She didn't stop them, nor could she stop them. After all, she couldn't control them forever. Since we've taken their clothes and taken their weapons, let's just bury them. It'll be considered a good karma. Charity Saint looked at a few Sector Lord level rookies plucking the clothes off the corpses and couldn't help but speak. Although these people were weak, it didn't mean they were ignorant. Yi Qinghan's Frost wore chariot and appearance, who didn't know of Charity Saint's appearance. Greetings Saint Yi, greetings Saint of Charity. We'll follow the Saint's orders. The group respectfully knelt on the spot, not daring to raise their heads. Charity Saint didn't say much and casually said that even if they didn't bury the corpses, she wouldn't kill them. Hua! The Frost War chariot almost left the ground and sped forward without any bumps. In the blink of an eye, it appeared thousands of li away. The group of rookies cried out in excitement. They didn't expect to see a saint in this lifetime. Moreover, it was the strongest and most beautiful saint in the world. Yi Qinghan looked at this familiar world. His divine sense had already covered millions of li, constantly searching for Bailey Chenxiang and that immortal peach tree. However, there was no trace of them, and he couldn't find them at all. A year later, the two of them appeared at the place where Bailey Chenxiang had cultivated the high-grade sacred medicine. Unfortunately, things had changed, and she had already left. Yi Qinghan's soul dimmed. At this moment, he didn't even have the strength to clench his fists. Living like this was indeed very painful. Just as Xia Jiulong had said, living like this was worse than death. Such an invincible supreme king should have been the pride of the generation, able to cover the sky with a wave of his hand and destroy saints with a stomp of his foot. However, he was actually cooped up in a small chariot. How sad and laughable. Right now, the only thing that could save Yi Qinghan was the legendary peach tree. Not only did it possess great fortune and abilities, but it also possessed boundless vitality. If it couldn't save Yi Qinghan, then he could only rely on himself. Whoosh! The Frost War chariot rolled over the stone path and continued deeper in. They discovered quite a few mutated immortal peach trees, all of them quite old. Yi Qinghan subconsciously wanted to plunder them, but he was unable to move his finger. The tiny person formed within his soul couldn't help but laugh, a laugh filled with self-mockery. Charity Saint knew Yi Qinghan well. He waved his hand and took away the mutated immortal peach tree. How could a greedy person like you let go of a treasure? Although you can't use it, the people of the insane sect can. That's why I helped you take it. From now on, I'm your arm and leg, so don't be sad. Charity Saint whispered. Yi Qinghan smiled. Although his expression was still stiff, his soul was really happy. He didn't expect Charity Saint to know him so well. Woo woo, whoosh. A gentle breeze blew past, causing his black hair to flutter. Wisps of cold air wrapped around his body. Even after 1,000,000 years, his golden body of utmost holiness would not rot. The two of them were like wandering monks, walking between heaven and earth. Everything was natural, beautiful, and in tune with the mountains and rivers. Day after day, year after year, they kept searching. Unfortunately, there was no trace of the immortal peach tree. Even the great saint couldn't find it, let alone Yi Qinghan and the universal love saint. Unless the immortal peach tree voluntarily came to see them, they wouldn't be able to find it even if they searched the entire coiling dragon arcane realm. Charity Saint was getting more and more nervous, afraid that they couldn't find the immortal peach tree, or that the tree wouldn't come out to see them. He channeled his holy power and said in a low voice, Junior Charity Saint requests the immortal peach tree great sage to come out and see me. I'm willing to pay any price. Boom, the sound rolled like a mighty river, as if it could spread throughout the entire coiling dragon arcane realm. Suddenly, the entire coiling dragon arcane realm quieted down. After a long while, there was still no sound. Even the wind stopped. No one or thing responded to Charity Saint. Yi Qinghan was silent. At this moment, even Bailey Qinxiang had disappeared, as if she was no longer in the arcane realm. It's hard to find immortals. Don't be sad. Yi Qinghan channeled his holy power and formed a few words to comfort Charity Saint. Charity Saint smiled bitterly. How could she not be anxious? If she could, she would rather her body be destroyed to wake Yi Qinghan up. One couldn't be in a hurry to find immortals. Everything depended on hard work and perseverance. Otherwise, wouldn't the world be filled with immortals and demons? Yi Qinghan had also settled down after so many years. His state of mind and soul were much stronger and more mature than his peers. As the saying goes, when the heavens bestow a great responsibility upon a great man, he must first endure hardships and work his muscles and bones. If one didn't want to endure hardships, how could one become an immortal? Can this coiling dragon arcane realm be connected to other small domains? Yi Qinghan once again formed a wild cursive word and asked Charity Saint. Charity Saint knew nothing about this place. She hadn't come out for many years and didn't care about worldly affairs. She was like a blind person to the coiling dragon arcane realm. Saints were powerless, so she could only shake her head. Take your time. I believe there must be more than one exit here. The immortal peach tree must have left a way out for itself. Yi Qinghan condensed a doppelganger and flew through the air. He actually possessed the ability to see through the heavens and the earth. His gaze swept across everything, and nothing could stop his gaze. The boundless great desolate Aeon looked like stars, but there was nothing special about it. Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan crushed a star with a wave of his hand. With a flip of his palm, he broke through the void. A canopy appeared in the sky. The chaos dissipated, and the aura of desolation filled the air. Yi Qinghan couldn't be more familiar with the aura of desolation. In the past, he cultivated the power of desolation, so he quickly felt the difference. The aura of desolation here wasn't like the undeveloped chaos, but was forcefully condensed by someone. Immortal spells can hide my divine eyes, but not my heart. Yi Qinghan's soul shook. Light gathered in his doppelganger's eyes, and he formed a seal with his palms. He gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and commanded the Tao of the heavens. He waved his hand, and the immortal sword appeared in his hand. His hands crossed, and he became one with the sword. He forcefully pierced through the void in front of him. Boom! Whoosh! Immortal radiance filled the sky. It was dazzling, and it stole one's soul. The immortal sword collapsed, and so did the immortal runes and Tao techniques. A void path appeared in front of him. He didn't know where it led, but he was sure that this was the escape route of the immortal peach tree. Yi Qinghan couldn't be sure if this was the only escape route for the immortal peach tree. He could only try to find the immortal trail. Charity Saint looked at this void path in shock. She couldn't understand how terrifying the immortal peach tree's creation was. It actually secretly built such a path to heaven here. Chapter 2162. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the immortal peach tree's divine abilities were omnipotent. If it could create such a path without anyone noticing, it could create a second one. A crafty rabbit had 3 burrows, let alone the immortal peach tree. Hua! The clone took the lead and stepped into the void path, scouting for the main body in Universal Love Saint. 1,000 meters away, Universal Love Saint carefully pushed the frost chariot and followed from afar. They didn't know where this path led to, but since it was created by the immortal peach tree, no one knew if it would be dangerous. Therefore, Universal Love Saint and Yi Qinghan were exceptionally careful. The void path was dotted with stars. It was like an illusion, but when one's divine sense got closer, they realized that everything was real. Such a path couldn't be taken unless one was a saint. However, there wasn't any danger. When they reached the end, a decently sized star appeared in front of them. It was a small region. Universal Love Saint's aura was restrained, and she didn't dare to release her saint power. She was afraid that the laws and grand Taos here wouldn't be able to withstand it and would directly shatter this small region. Hua! The clones dispersed, and Yi Qinghan and the Universal Love Saint descended on the planet. This was a planet of life, and it had existed for who knew how many years. Its cultivation was actually not weak, and its great Tao was also very complete. There were upper-level cultivators, but no saints. There were tens of thousands of cities, and they were incomparably majestic. Universal Love Saint chose a relatively powerful city and landed in the distant wilderness without alarming anyone. Hua! The Saint of Charity pushed the 1-meter-tall ice chariot forward, quickly entering the official road. As soon as she entered the official road, everyone immediately looked over. She was simply too perfect, without a single flaw. Yi Qinghan leaned against the chariot. His handsome and vigorous face did not become ugly because of the death of his physical body. He was still radiating with an evil aura, as if he had fallen asleep. There were many experts. Just like in the great world, the spiritual energy and life energy here were extremely terrifying. The immortal peach tree must have stopped here before, or there wouldn't be so many experts here forever. A city had a few hundred upper-level experts. Even a great world couldn't compare. Most of the people coming and going on the official path were sector lords. There were also some lower and middle-level experts. They couldn't sense Universal Love Saint's aura, so they didn't dare to come over and greet her. They could only discuss from afar and watch, hoping that someone would go over. There would always be people who were daring. A young Peak Sector Lord with great lust actually ran over to greet Universal Love Saint. Universal Love Saint didn't respond, and he actually reached out his hand to push the Frost Chariot, continuing to pester Universal Love Saint. Hua! The moment he touched the Frost War Chariot, his entire body was sealed in ice. Even his soul was frozen. He died silently, without any pain. The Saint of Charity didn't even look at him as he pushed Yi Qinghan towards the city. Instantly, the path, Peach Saint Peach Tree Path. Just like this, the ice sculpture stood outside the city for who knew how many years. No one dared to touch it, and even the blazing sun was unable to thaw this unlucky fellow. There were even people who used the fire origin to try and unseal it. In the end, the fire origin was extinguished, but the ice sculpture remained motionless. This was a story for later. The Saint of Universal Love pushed Yi Qinghan into the city. The city was dignified and heavy, and it was incomparably ancient. It was hard to imagine that such a small region could have such powerful cultivators, and so many at that. Yi Qinghan and Universal Love Saint both believed that they were getting closer to the immortal peach tree. Although it was hard to find, it didn't mean it didn't exist. If they wanted to find traces of the immortal peach tree, they had to ask the experts of this small region. The city lord was the best candidate. Universal Love Saint didn't stand on ceremony. She directly pushed Yi Qinghan into the city lord's residence. There were quite a few experts in the city lord's residence. There were quite a few upper-level experts. Yi Qinghan sensed them outside the city lord's residence, but these experts didn't sense the two saints. The guards of the residence looked at Universal Love Saint and instantly lost consciousness. They allowed her to push Yi Qinghan into the city lord's residence. There were still some high-ranking guards in the residence. They were shocked and they saw Yi Qinghan and Universal Love Saint. However, they didn't dare to scold them. They hurriedly knelt and said respectfully, "Junior greets Master. I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Universal Love Saint responded in a low voice and said, "Have the oldest cultivator in your city come out to see me." The high-ranking guard broke out in cold sweat. In the entire city, the one with the highest cultivation was naturally the city lord's ancestor. Ancestor Feng Yang was also the oldest, spanning 1,000,000 years. He was almost a half-saint. How could he come out just because they wanted him to? Ancestor Feng Yang is a grand elder. Junior can't make the decision. How about I inform the city lord? The guard was sweating profusely. Universal Love Saint pushed Yi Qinghan forward. She didn't want to waste any time. She circulated her saint power and said in a deep voice, "Feng Yang, come out to see this saint." Whoosh! Boom! The sound was like the sound of nature, but it pierced the ears like thunder. It shocked all the experts in the surroundings. Several figures rushed out of the city lord's residence. They were all in the upper level, but they didn't look old. They were all middle-aged. They looked at Yi Qinghan and Universal Love Saint, and their pupils shrank in horror. Upper-level cultivation wasn't bad. They could see that Yi Qinghan's frost chariot contained a terrifying chill. As for Universal Love Saint, her beauty couldn't hide her strength. Her saintly aura suppressed people's souls. Junior greets the saint. We didn't know you were coming. Several upper-level cultivators had goosebumps all over their bodies. They knelt on the ground and said in horror. "Where's Feng Yang? Have him come to see me. I have something to ask him," Universal Love Saint said in a deep voice. At this moment, a powerful aura was awakened in the back mountain. It was so powerful that it was almost a saint. It only lacked heaven, earth, man, and an immortal pill. Yi Qinghan and Universal Love Saint didn't believe that the immortal peach tree hadn't tampered with this place. Yi Qinghan's consciousness moved. A hand of nothingness appeared in front of him and reached deep. The hand of nothingness shattered the void and grabbed the half-saint existence. Boom! The half-saint was shocked. He wanted to struggle and escape, but he didn't even have the strength to resist. He was caught and brought to Yi Qinghan. A wisp of consciousness nailed him to the ground, unable to move. Then, the hand of nothingness dissipated. The half-saint stood there in a daze. Universal Love Saint was expressionless. She stared at the old man and said indifferently, "You're Feng Yang. Why are you running? I won't kill you." Feng Yang's face was pale. He didn't see how Universal Love Saint attacked. He didn't even use a wisp of her aura. He didn't know that the one who attacked him wasn't Universal Love Saint, but Yi Qinghan on the Frost Chariot. "High Sage. Junior didn't offend you," Feng Yang said in horror. Universal Love Saint replied indifferently, "I didn't say you offended me. I just have some questions for you. Bring us to a quiet place. If your answers are satisfactory, I don't mind giving you some opportunities." Feng Yang was pleasantly surprised. He hurriedly brought Universal Love Saint to the back mountain's forbidden area. Chapter 2163. Charity Saint pushed Yi Qinghan and followed Feng Yang. In the blink of an eye, they appeared at the back of the mountain. It was like a small secret realm. There were indeed mutated immortal peach trees here. There were only 7 or 8 of them, but they were all mature. The scenery was pleasant and the spiritual energy was dense. Yi Qinghan did not say anything. Charity Saint already knew what he was thinking, so he asked, "Have you ever seen an immortal peach tree? It has already reached the heavens. These mutated immortal peach trees are formed from its fruits." Feng Yang's expression changed. He hurriedly said respectfully, "Upper Saint, our ancestors once passed down a saying that those who see an immortal peach tree can become a saint. But until now, no one has ever seen it." Charity Saint smiled faintly and asked, "Since no one has seen it, why did your ancestors say that those who see an immortal peach tree can become a saint? If they haven't seen it, how would they know that there is an immortal peach tree?" This saying was enough to prove that the immortal peach tree was definitely here. Moreover, people had discovered it. These mutated immortal peach trees were proof. Feng Yang did not know how to refute. This saying was a legend, but no one had verified it. He had also never seen an immortal peach tree. "Where did you get these mutated immortal peach trees?" Charity Saint asked. Feng Yang frowned and thought for a while. He replied, "My father found them in a mountain when I was a child. At that time, they were still seedlings. When I was young, I especially liked to eat peaches. Therefore, he spent a lot of effort to transplant 10 or so immortal peach trees here. However, a few died along the way." "Location, bring us there," Charity Saint said in a low voice. Feng Yang hesitated. After all, too much time had passed. The sun and moon had moved, and the mountains and rivers had changed. The location back then had long been blurred. However, the general location could still be determined. He brought the 2 of them out of the ancient city. Outside the ancient city, the mountain range rose and fell like divine dragons. It was vigorous and majestic. Although it was a small region, it was still filled with the pressure of a large world. The mountain was filled with fog. The waterfall seemed to have broken through the Milky Way, rushing down from the sky to the ground. Water and spiritual energy were very suitable for human cultivation. Although it was also a small region, it was more suitable for cultivators to live in than the land of the 9 prefectures. Boom! The Frost War Chariot landed in a valley, surrounded by towering mountain ranges. Spiritual chi covered the sky and was extremely dense. Feng Yang looked around suspiciously. Too much time had passed, and he was unable to pinpoint the exact location. He could only remember that his father was hunting beasts in the vicinity. He said, "High Sage, it should be around here." The Universal Love Saint's divine sense covered 1,000 miles, searching for traces of immortals. Whoosh! A will soared into the sky, covering thousands of miles. Every corner was under his control, and the domain was born. Every blade of grass, every tree, and even the rustling of the wind could not escape the control of this will. At this moment, Feng Yang realized that the real strongest person was the muddle-headed man lying on the frost chariot. Hiss hiss hiss, Feng Yang was stunned as his eyes were filled with shock. From their appearances, Yi Qinghan and Charity Saint looked very young, but he knew that Charity Saint definitely had a much longer history than him. However, Yi Qinghan was different. Yi Qinghan was too young. He had at most a few tens of thousands of years of history. It could be seen from his brows. To be able to become a saint after cultivating for tens of thousands of years, what kind of freakish existence was this? Moreover, he was even stronger than Charity Saint. This kind of existence was beyond his comprehension. Whoosh, whoosh, the frost chariot moved on its own. It soared into the sky and appeared thousands of miles away in the blink of an eye. In front of it was a deep pit that spanned several miles. It looked like an ancient tree that had been uprooted. Although Yi Qinghan could not see, his divine sense was his eyes. It covered a radius of several miles. He controlled his will and scooped up a handful of soil from the depths of the pit. He had seen immortal peaches before. The immortal peach tree's aura was connected to immortal peaches. At this moment, he was almost certain that this was where the immortal peach tree had taken root. However, too much time had passed, and the immortal chi was too faint. Feng Yang and Charity Saint came to Yi Qinghan's side. When Feng Yang looked at Yi Qinghan again, his eyes were filled with fear and respect, even though it was just a corpse. Charity Saint came to Yi Qinghan's back and held his cold hand. He asked, "Is this where the immortal peach tree took root? If we can prove that this is the place, then it means that we are on the right path. We will find it sooner or later." Yi Qinghan wanted to hold Charity Saint's hand tightly, but his hands were completely numb. Although his body was still his, it was not his. This feeling made him feel helpless and sad. Charity Saint was also helpless. The only thing that could help him now was the immortal peach tree. Whether it could save him or not, this was still an opportunity. Feng Yang, how many planets are there in this small region? A dozen words appeared above the pit, filled with immortal might. Feng Yang's hair stood on end. At this moment, he somewhat understood Yi Qinghan's state. He did not dare to ask more, and hurriedly replying. "Exalted Sage, there are tens of thousands of small regions that are connected. Although they are based on countless planets, I'm afraid they are not much smaller than a greater world." After Yi Qinghan heard this, he actually felt a little tired. He naturally knew how big a greater world was, but he did not expect that the combination of countless small regions would be so large that even a sage would feel helpless. "It's okay. We will search one by one. We will find it eventually." Charity Saint hurriedly comforted him. Yi Qinghan could only chuckle bitterly. His soul could control everything, and he could look down on millions upon millions of stars. If he wanted to find the immortal peach tree, then even if a great sage came, what could he do? A wave of resentment surged out of Yi Qinghan's body. Murderous intent overflowed. Even a half-sage like Feng Yang could not withstand it. He coughed up blood and retreated. His face was pale. He could not withstand even half of Yi Qinghan's aura. Yi Qinghan was indeed very angry. He could not be without desires. He constantly wanted to kill the Holy Lord and the 9 Prefectures Lord to vent his anger. His murderous intent spread throughout the valley. Yi Qinghan's soul spun rapidly. If he wanted to find the immortal peach tree, he might as well let it find him. If he wanted the tree to find him, there was only one way, and that was to find Bailey Longxian's corpse and soul. Once I find Bailey Longxian's corpse and soul, I don't have to worry about it not coming to find me. Yi Qinghan secretly pondered. He made up his mind and decided to give up on finding the immortal peach tree. Instead, he prepared to find Bailey Longxian. Go back, Yi Qinghan condensed 2 words filled with will. You want to give up? We still have a chance. Charity Saint said in a deep voice. No, we will talk on the way back. Yi Qinghan condensed a few more words. Then, the war chariot turned on its own and sped away. Charity Saint had no choice but to push the war chariot back. Yi Qinghan continuously condensed large words and expressed his thoughts. Finally, Charity Saint was convinced and chose to give up on finding the immortal peach tree. The war chariot sped along as fast as lightning. It turned into a shooting star and traveled 1,000 miles in a flash. Charity Saint had been rushing along for dozens of years. His speed became faster and faster as he rushed to the coiling dragon island. The two rested for several months and adjusted their condition. A few days later, they entered the outside world. Once again, they rushed into the sky-reaching church's territory. Yi Qinghan restrained his aura. He had not communicated with Charity Saint for more than 10 years. Suddenly, 3 large words appeared in front of him. Go to hell. Chapter 2164. Hell was a special place. It was not in the same space as the outside world, but it was connected. As long as one understood the order, it was easy to enter. This situation was nothing to a saint. The order of hell covered most of the outside world, including the sky-reaching church. Charity Saint destroyed the order and brought Yi Qinghan and the frost chariot into hell. The saint's aura surged through the galaxy and swept through the 18 districts of hell, alarming the Lord of Hell. The Lord of Hell was shocked when he saw Yi Qinghan rushing towards the hell tower that suppressed the Saint of Sin. He did not dare to provoke Yi Qinghan, so he could only inform the 9 lords. Cloud Dragon Saint and the others were shocked. The Saint of Sin was personally suppressed by the Saint of Sin. If he was released, who knew how many people would suffer? The lords of the 9 mansions all rushed out of their mansions and quickly shattered the order of hell, rushing into hell from the Holy Empire's territory. They then flew into the sky and burrowed into the ground, rushing towards Yi Qinghan and the Charity Saint. In an instant, 11 saints rushed into hell. The 18 districts could clearly feel the saint's aura. The ghosts and experts with souls all knelt down, not daring to touch the saint's aura. Whoosh 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 dot whoosh. The saints tore through space. Auroras appeared in the dusky hell. 9 streams of light streaked across 1,000,000 miles and destroyed the districts. Charity Saint turned around and looked behind her. She could still feel the aura of the 9 lords. Yi Qinghan calmly let Charity Saint continue forward. However, his heart was filled with killing intent. Today, he must kill a saint to vent his anger. Charity Saint felt Yi Qinghan's killing intent. She stroked his forehead and said softly, "If you kill a saint now, won't you anger the Saint of Sin and start a holy war? Can you bear with it? At least wait until your body recovers and you become a saint." Yi Qinghan could not speak, but his mind was still there. Killing a saint now would not affect the Saint of Sin. He did not say anything about Xia Jiulong's death, so why would he care about a few saints' disciples? Cloud Dragon Saint, I want you to have a taste of what I'm like now. Yi Qinghan sneered. He did not want to kill the Cloud Dragon Sage, but he wanted him to suffer so much that he wished he was dead. Outside the Hell Tower, Yi Qinghan stopped. The Frost War Chariot stood at the entrance of the Hell Tower. Whoosh! The Frost Chariot moved on its own, waiting for the 9 lords to arrive. Are you confident in defeating the 9 of them? Charity Saint asked solemnly. Yi Qinghan was still teasing the soul and did not respond. This time, Yi Qinghan was prepared to use his trump card right from the start. He would first kill a chief, then capture the Cloud Dragon Saint. The Lord of Hell would not dare to make a move. Otherwise, he would let the saints of the insane sect flatten this place. Yi Qinghan had planned every step and was just waiting for the Cloud Dragon Sage and the others to arrive. The Cloud Dragon Sage and the rest sped away, covering a distance of 10,000 miles in the blink of an eye. They quickly appeared in the field of vision and were revered by all living beings, but they did not know that they were walking towards death. Whoosh! Outside the Hell Pagoda, a violent gale swept through the area, and the yellow sand danced in the air. The two's hair danced in the wind, and a strand of killing intent burst forth. Woo woo woo, a strand of energy was secretly condensing, and in an instant, it exploded. An invisible hand appeared in front of them, breaking through the void and grabbing towards the distance. Its speed was too fast, just like how he condensed the stars into a divine sword. Before anyone could react, the stars were shattered. The Lord of Zhenyun Manor was on the right wing, and at this moment, he was sprinting. His speed was fast to begin with, and he just happened to collide with Yi Qinghan's invisible hand, and was caught in the palm. The invisible hand released an immortal spell, and a destructive aura spread into the body of Zhenyun Saint. Ah, boom! Saint Zhenyun's holy power erupted from within the saint's body. He slammed his palm against the arm of the void hand, trying to shatter it. His final struggle was so terrifying that he actually managed to shatter the void hand controlled by Yi Qinghan. However, his body was tainted with immortal runes, and the endless destructive force quickly eroded his life force. Ah, save me! Whoosh! Whoosh, bang! Zhenyun Saint lost control of his body, and fell heavily to the ground. After a while, he fainted, and even if he didn't die, he was still severely injured. At this moment, Yi Qinghan waved his hand and shattered the void, forming a divine sword. His aura shattered the void, and his aura was terrifying. Yi Qinghan! How dare you kill the lords of the 9 mansions? Are you declaring war with the Holy Empire? Yunlong Saint was shocked and shouted angrily. Whoosh! This is a personal grudge, and it has nothing to do with the Mad Sect or the Holy Empire. Otherwise, I'll let the Mad Sect destroy your 9 mansions today. Yunlong Saint, you made my life worse than death. Today, I'll let you experience the feeling of being unable to move your body. Every word was soul-stealing, and every word was heart-piercing. Another immortal spell struck into Yunlong Saint's sea of consciousness. Yunlong Saint's hair stood on end, and the other lords were also furious. They didn't expect Yi Qinghan to take the initiative to declare war today. This is between me and Yunlong. If any of you dare to interfere, you'll end up like Zhenyun Saint. The mad tyrant grass appeared in the starry sky, and it was filled with a supreme will that couldn't be defied. Whoosh! Whoosh! The frost chariot slowly moved forward and took the initiative. A living dead person lying on the frost chariot shocked the 8 lords so much that they didn't dare to move. Yi Qinghan, don't go overboard. It was a fair fight that day, and you were willing to fight. What does this have to do with me? Moreover, you took away a fire saint scripture, some immortal ingredients, and an immortal pill. What else do you want? Yunlong Saint's aura stagnated. Although the battle hadn't started, his aura had already been defeated. He didn't dare to fight with Yi Qinghan. At this moment, the Universal Love Saint walked towards Yi Qinghan, her long skirt swaying in the wind. She looked up at the Cloud Dragon Saint and said indifferently, "Today is a fair battle. If you win, I'll return these 3 items to you. If you lose, you'll be like Qinghan, lying on the chariot, unable to speak or move. Time is a lifetime." Whoosh! Whoosh! Yunlong Saint was extremely nervous. He didn't dare to fight at all. This saint has no interest in fighting with a junior. You can't release the Sin Saint today. Otherwise, don't blame us for joining forces to deal with you, Yunlong Saint threatened. With 8 sages attacking at the same time, even if Yi Qinghan and Universal Love Saint worked together, they wouldn't be a match. After all, Yi Qinghan needed time to attack, and he didn't have much defense. What if I insist on releasing him? Yi Qinghan condensed the word immortal, filled with killing intent. Dong! 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 Even Yunlong Saint didn't dare to spout nonsense. If he angered Yi Qinghan, a few sages would die today. No one wanted to die, let alone a sage. As long as such a person wasn't suppressed by a great sage, he would be able to rest easy for the rest of his life. Death would be the end of everything. Within the Hell Pagoda, a soul awakened. In an instant, it covered the entire area. Although the powerful soul wasn't as strong as a great sage's, it was definitely stronger than Yi Qinghan's level. However, the great sage law suppressing him wasn't something he could destroy. Moreover, with the law outside, as long as the Hell Pagoda didn't fall, the Sin Saint couldn't come out. Chapter 2165. QQ Reading and Genesis Chinese Network are the fastest to update. Other channels are lagging. The Sin Saint in Hell woke up. Seeing Yi Qinghan lying on the frost chariot, he was stunned. He was very familiar with this person. After being suppressed for so many years, Yi Qinghan was the only one who came to see him. Moreover, Yi Qinghan was his descendant. Although his bloodline was not pure, he was still his ancestor. It's him. His physical body is dead, but his soul has been sealed as a saint. What kind of saint technique did he cultivate? The Sin Saint's soul could cover Yi Qinghan, but he couldn't leave the Hell Tower, let alone help. When he heard that Yi Qinghan wanted to release him, he was pleasantly surprised. After being suppressed here for so many years, a saint's temperament should have become irritable. He wanted to leave long ago, but all his efforts over the years were in vain. Yi Qinghan's words made the 8 lords not dare to make a sound. However, Yi Qinghan wanted to force them to make a move. Even if he wanted to take revenge today, he had to have a good reason. If you don't want to talk, then scram. Don't delay our work. Charity Saint stepped forward and said coldly. At this time, even ghosts would have thought that a saint could be so cowardly. Other than Zhen Yun, who was lying on the ground, the other lords didn't make a sound. They didn't respond to Yi Qinghan, but they didn't leave either. However, Yi Qinghan couldn't take it anymore. He gathered his immortal sword to steal people's souls. 7-colored lightning tore through space and time. The figure formed by holy power put his palms together and controlled the immortal sword. The tip of the sword was already aimed at Cloud Dragon Saint. Cloud Dragon Saint's hair stood on end. He didn't even say a word and immediately fled. He changed the order and escaped from hell. Yi Qinghan's spiritual power exploded and changed the order of hell. The immortal sword broke through the void and chased after him. The energy swept through hell and changed the Tao of reincarnation. Roar! Whoosh! Immortal technique spread and rushed into the 18th district of hell. The Lord of Hell standing in the distance was terrified. If he knew that the 9 lords didn't dare to fight, he wouldn't have notified them. Boom! In just the blink of an eye, the immortal sword had charged out from hell to enter eternal world. In just the blink of an eye, it had arrived behind Cloud Dragon Sage. The Cloud Dragon Sage screamed in fear and soared into the sky, constantly changing directions. In order to escape, he was practically crawling on the ground, heading deep into the forest. The immortal sword flattened the mountains and rivers, shattering everything. A deep chasm appeared in the great world. It was 10,000 li deep and extended for millions of li. In the end, the immortal sword chi disappeared, turning into powder that scattered in all directions. The other 7 manor heads looked at Yi Qinghan, then looked at the fallen Saint Jinyun. Without any hesitation, they fled with him. Yi Qinghan did not make a move against the other manor heads because he was afraid that the Holy Master would act out of desperation and allow the 8 manor heads to leave. When the Lord of Hell looked at Yi Qinghan again, he felt a chill run down his spine. Yi Qinghan's consciousness swept past the Lord of Hell. That terrifying consciousness was like the descent of a great saint, looking down at him as if he was looking at an ant. "Greetings, Saint Yi." The Lord of Hell pretended to be calm and bowed. Yi Qinghan and the Lord of Hell had been enemies for a long time. In the future holy war, they would definitely be on opposite sides. At this moment, he would not give the Lord of Hell any face, so he directly condensed a word and sent it to the Lord of Hell. Scram. The word immortal was filled with murderous intent, and immortal spells surged like a mighty river. The Lord of Hell's expression changed. Since he became a saint, even a great saint would not be so rude. This was the first time he was scolded like this, but he did not dare to refute. Humph, the Lord of Hell snorted and clenched his fists. He stared at Yi Qinghan for a while, then turned and left. Yi Qinghan did not look at the Lord of Hell again. Instead, he was resting and gathering his spiritual energy, preparing to break through the Hell Pagoda and release the Sin Saint. The Sin Saint looked at Yi Qinghan from inside the pagoda, his eyes filled with shock. Back then, Yi Qinghan was only a realm lord. How long had it been since then? Now, his physical body was dead and his soul had become a saint. This was a miracle. It really is him. I didn't see wrong. His bloodline and appearance have not changed. Saint Sin was powerful, and looking at Yi Qinghan, it was easy to tell that he wasn't much stronger than Yi Qinghan. Saint Sin himself had been a hero of his time, a man who looked down on his peers with disdain. He had even believed that he would surpass the great sage level. Unfortunately, he had been suppressed by the Sacred Lord. Am I old, or have the times changed? Although the Cloud Dragon Saint was not the strongest saint, he was not weak either. But when faced with the Sin Saint, he did not even have the courage to resist. Jinyun Saint was suppressed with a single palm, and his fate is unknown. Can he kill a saint? Does he cultivate an immortal spell? The Sin Saint murmured. He felt that he had lost touch with the times. 3 days and 3 nights passed in the blink of an eye. Yi Qinghan finally awoke from his meditative state. His divine sense covered the Hell Pagoda, covering the entire surface of the pagoda. The great sage forbidden magic was surrounded by immortal light. Yi Qinghan had been studying the great sage forbidden magic, and had found an opening. His divine sense retreated, and his psychic power surged. His soul circulated to its peak, and he formed a human figure that stood proudly in the air. With a wave of his hand, he shattered the void, then formed an immortal sword that pierced through the void like a meteor, shooting toward the Hell Pagoda. Roar! Roar! Boom! The sword was powerful enough to shatter mountains and shatter the earth. It could even kill saints. When it slammed into the Hell Pagoda, even hell itself trembled. The Hell Pagoda's defenses were activated, and the 2 beams of light slammed into each other. Surprisingly, the great sage forbidden magic did not shatter, but it was on the verge of collapse. Roar! Yi Qinghan's condensed silhouette grabbed at the Hell Pagoda and actually crushed it. Boom! Bang! The Hell Pagoda shattered, and the great sage forbidden magic dissipated. The earth quaked, and hell trembled. The gods and ghosts of hell knelt in awe. Aeeeee! Saint Sin shot up into the air, the chains binding his limbs taut. But without the suppression of the Hell Pagoda, the chains shattered. I'm finally free. Xia Zhaoyang, you old bastard! Saint Sin roared, and his sage light roared, shattering the shackles on his legs. His sage light was sharp, and he didn't look very old. At most, he looked to be in his 40s or 50s. And yet, His aura was comparable to that of a great sage. Back in the day, Saint Sin had been like the sun in the midday sky, and was definitely stronger than a great sage. Despite being suppressed for countless years, his cultivation base had remained the same. In fact, he had even made some progress. Now, he was even stronger than before, although there was still some distance between him and the great sage level. Saint Charity was shocked, and quickly pushed the war chariot backward. Saint Sin had been widely acknowledged as the most powerful great sage back in the day. He was arrogant and unruly, and refused to admit defeat to anyone. Saint Charity wasn't sure if Yi Qinghan had made the right decision in releasing him. Saint Sin looked down at Yi Qinghan, his face expressionless, causing Saint Charity's hair to stand on end. Saint Charity, the proudest goddess in the holy land of Oshi. Saint Sin said coolly, a profound smile on his face. I never would have guessed that you'd be pushing a wheelchair for him. Have you become his follower? This has nothing to do with you, madman, Saint Charity said coldly. If Yi Qinghan has decided to release you, I won't stop him. But if you dare to bite the hand that feeds you, I'll make sure you stay alive even if I have to die. Feng Bufan was Saint Sin's real name. Back in the day, he was known as the Madman. Because of his wild and arrogant ways of doing things, he was no different from a madman. Feng Bufan smiled coldly, and his aura of wild violence filled his golden body. His resentment was so strong that it was almost tangible. After being imprisoned for so long, even a great sage would feel resentment. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.